All right. I had to go upstairs and get something that I want to share with you guys and ask you if this is something you might be interested in me doing or pursuing in a series of videos. And that is restoration of images. Not images necessarily, but old photos and things like that. I'll give you an example. I know a gentleman who has a fantastic lineage as far as family here in the United States. He goes back several, I would say a couple hundred years. I mean, literally, they came that long ago. And he's sort of like the family historian. And he's right now not quite totally blind, but almost there, just like my mom was. And he relies on me to repair and restore old documents and photographs from the family. And again, both sides of the family. He's got about 3 families because he was actually adopted. But he has been able to kind of touch and go back and contact family members that he has never even met. Anyway, long story. He is an amazing historian, and I do work for him. And basically, I just tell him to take me out to lunch. I don't ever take money from the man. But anyway, this is an old, beat-up little card that shows, I guess, very historic-looking little church chapels. And again, some sort of dedication internally. So my job was to, and it's full of watermarks and all sorts of damage, if you will. It's been through the mill. So I took it and scanned it. I scanned it at 600 pixels per inch. So that's enough for most restoration purposes. So that means it's going to be scanned 1-to-1, size-wise, but at 600 pixels per inch. And then I opened both sides in Photoshop. I made a template, and after I restored everything, removed all of the dirt and smudges, I made him a card. And he wanted 2 of these, and this is going to go in envelopes that I get from Red River. And this is the material that I used for that. This is Red River's, let me see if you can see that, Aurora Fine Art, it's a fine art paper, art white. They have a white and a natural. The white is, again, like it says, pretty much a pure white base. And the natural has a bit of warmth to it. And it's really, really good for photographs that are semi-tone like sepia, or anything that, will benefit from a little warmth on the paper base. I wouldn't use it for like a snow scene, okay? And so this is one of the products that you can get from Red River. It comes already pre-scored. And I just simply created a template in Photoshop. Template is 6.25 inches wide by 9. And then I create a cell that I then insert images in that cell. The cell will automatically clip the excess. I can resize it within that cell. I have demonstrated that in the past. And I know that I did a video or 2 on that subject as well. So anyway, but I also do relatively extensive restoration of old photographs. So if you guys want to learn about that, let me know in my Facebook group or the comments section if you guys would love to see me do a series of videos on that subject. They would be a little bit tedious because it's going to be basically real-time editing and fixing up images that are scanned. All right, we have about 9 people here, and I only see about 3 people actually acknowledging that they are here on the chat. So please, the rest of you, come on board, get on the chat, say hello, say who you are, where you're watching from. And again, all of the old-timers that are here, and I know there's going to be more as we go along, are going to interact with you and say hi, a nice hello back at you guys. And we have Robert Smeltzer he says, you are me. You are number 1 in our hearts. And I really do love that. And I really, really thank you for that. Cliff Fit from Denmark is here. Grant Lesueur from Boston. Beautiful autumn day today. I wish I was up there taking beautiful photographs of your trees. I was stationed at the old Fort Devens, Massachusetts. That's where our second daughter was born. And one thing that did shock me when I got there was the beauty of the New England fall. It was amazing. And I was lucky enough to live in military housing that had pretty extensive woods, and it was all hardwoods, maples and oaks in the back, a few evergreens. But again, it was just gorgeous. I had never seen anything like that in my whole life, and I just loved it. He's got a question. So Grant says, question, when you do proofing in Lightroom, do you use paper simulation? You can, but it's really not as accurate as people believe. All it's going to do is sort of add the dulling effect of some paper surfaces. I wouldn't worry about it, because what happens is that if you do that and then you try to compensate by editing that image while it's still under, soft proofing conditions, you might overdo it. So I would suggest simply plain soft proof it and print it, and then come back and compare it to your soft proof look. I hope you guys enjoyed my very last video that I just uploaded. It's getting some really nice reviews, and I think I'm going to follow up on that and maybe do some other videos down the road pertaining to that sort of subject. And again, it's a little bit different in Lightroom than it is in Photoshop. Andrew Mantovani II from the Bronx is here. Sonic SKJ. He says, I'm here. Sup? All right. Where are you from at, man? Tell us where you're from and where you're watching from, because we need to know that so we know kind of the demographics of the country and other countries that are watching this live stream. Believe it or not, YouTube loves to see that sort of thing. George Gabb says, it's West Texas, 80 degrees. I wish it was like 80 here, maybe 75. It's a little bit cool today. And I was going to do a little flying earlier, but we were out all day and just basically went to our club meeting. My wife and I belong to a club, and we had our meeting today, came back. We stopped off at a side road farm type market and bought some apples and other things. And believe it or not, we had a basket full of stuff, and it was like $10 net. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, Grant says, yeah, I did that and I overcompensated and I did overdo it. Yeah, it's very easy to do because, again, you're not going to get like an actual perfectly, accurate representation of what a profile will do, the effect of a profile will do on what the monitor displays. And we're going to talk about that because one of the guys that always shows up here did give me a really good response to the video on YouTube comment section. And I'm going to go ahead and cover that in a little bit. And we're going to do a quick demo about soft proofing in Photoshop. We're going to do auto out of gamut warning again. I'll show you how that works. We're going to talk about the Pro 1000 firmware that's just come out and some of the problems that some folks are having. So far, only a couple of people that I know installed it or tried to install it have problems. I'm also going to show you that once you install that, successfully, hopefully, you will be able to get some Red River papers that come already pre-cut, 17 by something. It's quite long. But if you want anything longer, up to the, 47 inches that they claim you will be able to print on, then you're going to need to then cut your own strips or pieces from a roll. They've also, apparently, and for those of you who may be doing this already, the driver for the Pro 1000 current version only allows you to load, I think it's something like just a handful of custom media configurations. Okay, so you go to your media configuration tool, you have a odd paper that you want to configure, meaning you want to find out how wide the platen needs to be set because of the width of the paper. So for instance, something thin like this will require a very narrow gap. Something wider like this Aurora art paper, will require a slightly wider gap. This being luster, this being a matte type surface, will also require different levels of ink density. And I'm not talking about color, I'm talking about total ink density. So absorbent papers like that Canson watercolor paper that I use a lot, yeah, that requires a lot higher ink density. So you do that inside the media configuration tool. And then once you got everything done and configured, and you've actually made multiple tests to make sure that this is exactly what you want, the results that you're looking for, you save it, and then you process that saving bunch of information into a file that eventually gets then installed inside your printer, driver, firmware. I don't know where it goes, but it will be available then in your custom paper choice. And I'll show you really quick what that looks like before we get too deep into this, because supposedly, this is the cool thing, I heard that they increased it to like something like 40 some odd extra entries, because right now you're only limited to just a handful. So we'll take a quick look. I'm going to go ahead and load the driver, and you will be able to see exactly what I am talking about. So we're going to right click printer preferences. We're going to jump over to the screen, and here is my driver right here. Okay, we're going to diminish everything. Did I diminish totally everything? Yes, I think I did. Sorry about that. I forgot about Windows 10 and how funky that is. When you do that, when you shake it, you will diminish or make everything kind of go away. So here we go. Let's see what happened here. Good Lord. Where's my OBS? Here's my OBS. Okay, I need to see it on my monitor to make sure that it is still there. Okay, so here we go. I will not jiggle it this time. So this is the driver preferences. Now we're going to go over to the media type drop-down menu. And normally this does not exist here. This only comes into existence after you create some custom media configurations. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And I think that's all you can put on there at the current level of firmware. So I guess if you were to update that firmware, you should be able to then get a lot more. And I think it's up to like 45 different choices. If I read that correctly, again, it was from a person, so a third-party source who did go ahead and install that. So again, we'll see whether that actually is true or not. But I still have to sort of think hard about performing this upgrade, because some people have been having problems with it. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Let me go ahead and reload my people count or viewer count here. I mistakenly deleted it. That's just what I do most of the time. Lots of mistakes. Okay, so like I was saying, installation of a firmware usually just requires that your printer is connected to your computer via USB. I am not sure whether connecting via a network cable will also work. I assume it would. I wouldn't, understand why wouldn't, but they suggest USB. So this person who did it apparently was originally connected via network, and it failed. The installation failed, and I don't know exactly what happened. He lives in the UK, so there's no way for me to go too far as to trying to diagnose the problem. He just basically stated that it failed several times, but at the same time, he was also not too upset because the printer is still under warranty, and basically he's performing an operation that they would want you to do anyway. So he's been sort of spending a lot of time, on the phone with support, and so far he hasn't been getting a lot of support. Isn't that sad? But anyway, that's where he's at right now. So I was thinking, well, the last time that I was checking settings in the LCD on my printer, I noticed that there was an entry that was specifically for installation of firmware. And I thought, wait a minute, are you supposed to use, the LCD, or are you supposed to just simply double click on the downloaded file and let it install? That's usually the way I do it on Epson printers. So again, I have to kind of go back and look and see what that entry on the LCD says. If I go ahead and click on it, in other words, say OK, what is it going to ask me to do? Will it ask me to go back to my computer and then, load the software or the firmware? We'll see. So 47 inches max length. That would be really good. And of course, also the as far as I know from the bit of information I got from someone, is that it will more than what? You got 6 now, up to 45, I think he told me, media configurations that can be installed. And if you remember just looking a few seconds ago, you saw it by actual name of the paper. In fact, whatever name I wanted to give that paper configuration. And so that is really, really cool. Now, this is nothing really new. It's not really specific to the Pro 1000 or 2000 or the others. But pretty much all of the IPF or image prograph printer models from Canon, specifically, I think it started maybe, I'm not sure because I'm not an expert on this subject, but I think it started with the IPF 6400 and then up after that, from that particular size to the larger ones. And so using that media configuration tool, you can then set really, really specific media configurations, which will then be exactly the parameters of the physical parameters that you need to consider when you print on a specific paper. Now, here's what happens most of the time, because the odd thing is that if I choose to make a profile, let's just say, for a luster paper that happens to be thick, then the profile that I download from someone, they'll simply ask me to load this paper choice, Pro Luster, in my driver, and then tell it to allow, the application to control color through that custom profile. Well, that custom profile is for a thick paper. It just happens to have the same surface, so it probably requires the same level of density and so forth, except it doesn't take into account the thickness. So it might say to you, go ahead and load Pro Luster as the paper choice, not configuration yet, as the paper choice, and then manually increase the gap. That means that there is no real specific paper configuration for that paper, because it happens to be luster and thicker than this thin stuff. You see what I'm saying? So the profiles are made using the thin setting. Then they ask you to increase the gap. Well, what about ink density? Maybe this paper doesn't require as much ink density as that other thick but also luster paper. So you need to go through the manual configuring of a paper you plan to make a media configuration file for, which then you load into your driver. It's really neat. Once you get this done, and it requires a bit of work and testing and retesting to arrive at the final so-called perfect parameters. You run a bunch of charts, a bunch of like from black to white ramps. You use a low ink density, a higher, until you get to the point where you reach that magic amount of density where you get a black square, and then number 2 or 002 is a tiny bit lighter. Okay, and the same thing with your highlights. 255 is just paper, no ink, and 254 just has that slight little bit of density. And that is basically you are programming and creating a perfect condition for that paper. Then when you get all of that set up, then you save it, and then it will appear in that custom paper tab in your paper choice drop-down choice. It's pretty neat. It's a very nice feature, especially if you are really serious about printing. Not only that, but also serious about getting the most out of a paper that is not necessarily a Canon or Epson paper, because those papers have been already configured for you by the company. But none of the other off-brand papers have been configured in that manner. Oh no, not at all. They are closely configured, but not perfectly. They're configured by surface. That's it. So in this case, this will be matte, even though it's a Aurora Fine Art white. Okay, a specific thickness, a lot thicker than this thin stuff. Okay, so they just tell you to use the Pro Matte setting. Okay, and that may not be correct. Okay, so that's something to take into account. Using that media configuration tool is really, really one of those features that why hasn't this existed before for all printers? Okay, it would really make things a lot better, and the output that we could then turn out would be top notch. Okay, simply put. Skip Barber from Yorktown, Virginia is here. Sonic SKJ from Connecticut. So he told us now he's from Connecticut. Robert Smeltzer, Avenue, Maryland. Once more, alrighty. Hanska, hello Jose, from Tasmania. Oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for jumping here with us. I hope you enjoy the evening. We hope to make it a memorable one, as we always try. 1066 Internet. I do a bit of photo restoration too. Yes, would be interested in your methods. Right. I use Photoshop for this. I use multiple layers, that sort of thing. If you've seen any of the so-called professional restoration videos, basically that's where I learned to do this, and just a lot of practice and good eyeballs, which I don't have. So, who knows? Sometimes I leave out things. But sometimes you can over-restore something, and I try not to do that. I try not to make it look unnatural. All right. Especially dealing with portraiture and things like that. You don't want to remove a permanent mark on somebody's face. Maybe they have a little wart or a mole or something like that. That's something you just don't remove. But I'm talking about physical damage. If I was to tear this and then scan it, I would have to repair that tear, especially if that was like some kind of historical, non-replaceable photograph. Harold Goldberg is here from Richmond, Virginia. Bogus Law Wasilinski. Wasilinsin. Wow, that's a good one for me. From Corona, California. All right, Scott S. from Ohio, and Yolanda Rowe from Virginia girl near Memphis. No, from this Virginia girl near Memphis, Tennessee. So you got a Virginia transplant in Memphis. All righty. Okay. So again, like I said on the Facebook announcement, go ahead, post your pictures. You are here spending the evening with me. Take this opportunity to ask whatever you wish. And if I have the answer, or if I can come up with a way to help you out, at least we'll definitely try. I know some of you here may actually know exactly how to solve many of these problems. Well, go ahead and ask away. This is your chance. All right, so what else has happened? We got to talk about soft proofing, auto-gamut warning in a little bit. I'm going to actually do a demonstration. Let me quickly show you, since we touched on the firmware for the Pro 1000. Let me take you over to Red River's site. Do I have that loaded? Yep. And you will see, no, wrong window. There you go. Let me put this at the very bottom. Use my OBS to kind of layer the different scenes that I set up. So here we have Red River's site. We are on the paper section. Let me see if I can get you all there again. So we're going to go ahead and take the paper tour and then arrive here. It's a paper guide, basically. It takes you through all of the paper types that they sell. We're going to go all the way down to the very bottom here and shop by paper size, paper type, photo type. In other words, if you do certain types of photography, greeting cards, that sort of thing, shop for paper specific to a model printer. But we're going to go ahead and look at the paper size section. So this gives you everything that they sell as far as paper, and not just the standard sizes, but also the rolls and such. So they used to have a lot more variety. I just realized that now, just looking. They used to have a lot more variety. They used to have some larger 17 by whatever. So like, for instance, on the Pro 1000 now with the new firmware, you should be able to print 13 by 20 by 38 panoramas already pre-cut for you. The paper comes in a big old box already ready to be used in whatever feeder you choose to use. And again, that would be great because you don't have to deal with the hassle of cutting off like very long sheets of paper off of a roll. You got to deal with curl. You got to deal with the possibility of you scratching the surface, especially on more delicate papers. But you know, they have odd sizes as well. 9 by 13, that's new. 8 by 10, that's common. 8.5 by 14, I've never seen that before. 11 by 14, that's a normal one. 12 by 12, for those of you who do book scrapping, or scrapbooking, I should say. And 16 by 20 is a common old-fashioned photo size. And 17 by 25, which is a pretty good size already. The Pro 1000 can handle that without a problem. So these are your hard-to-find sizes. And then your panorama sizes come in 8.5 by 25 and 13 by 38. And unfortunately, at this point, I really don't know anyone else that's selling, you know, large sheets like that. You know, take advantage of it if that's what you want to do. Again, I have a P800 with the roll adapter, so no worries as far as that's concerned. I got several rolls that are, you know, 100 foot in length, 17-inch wide, so I can just load a matte fine art paper or a regular luster roll of RC type paper for quick prints, and I get great results from it. But those of you who just have a Pro 1000, I guess this new firmware will open up that new avenue for you to be able to print something larger than just the regular standard size of 17 by 22. The 17 by 25, I believe you still have to make a custom size in the driver. So, all right. See, I don't see any more questions here. Come on, folks, don't be shy. Ask away. Let me go ahead and take you over to Photoshop real quick, because I know you guys may want to see this. Screen display. Here we go. So we have our lovely standard image loaded here. And as you can see, these colors right here are just out of control. Okay. And as someone very eloquently put it, let me go ahead and see if I have that ready to go right now. I want you guys to hear what he had to say. As said, it was, you know, as if it was very well composed and well written. It's a bit much, but I will go ahead and paraphrase as much as I can. And I don't know whether you can read that or not, but again, simply what he's saying is that a regular RGB rated monitor will display a heck of a lot more colors than your printer could possibly produce. Okay? Simple as that. And so something that looks like this, okay, maybe these were the actual values that were used to compose this image here, this composite of images. But again, they're just way beyond the ability of my little sRGB, monitor here. This is not a RGB monitor or Adobe RGB monitor. So, I am crippled here as far as being able to reproduce these on my display, but it's doing the best that it can. As you can see, these are ridiculous colors. They cannot be printed, period. Get that through your head. I don't mean to be rude, but this is something that you have to accept. These colors cannot be printed. You will never be able to see those on paper because, of course, this is, again, on a monitor. Even this sRGB monitor can exceed, in some cases, some colors, not the whole gamut volume of my printer, for instance, the Pro 1000 or the P800, but in some areas, it can exceed, but also what the opposite of that would be, fail to be able to display or produce colors that are displayed here. And so these colors here, as great and beautiful as they look on your monitor, and again, this has been calibrated to the 9th degree. So I got it set so that my output matches in density and my output matches in neutrality and my display matches in neutrality as well. From the darkest to the lightest, pure white over here, this does not change hue whatsoever. Okay. And so that is our goal. This is what we want to achieve. Now, so, at this point, you kind of like pull your hair out. So what do I do? I mean, and why is this image this way? Well, let me switch over to me because I think you got to see me explain this. And I did it on my video. The reason this image has these ridiculous colors is because they created a standard image that should be relevant up to, I don't know how long we're going to be printing photos at home or professionally. And I don't know how many more years of printer development we have in front of us. But this image has colors that, though they are not reproducible by today's standards, printer-wise, may be reproducible in the future, depending on what ink sets, depending what print engines printers can use in 5, 6, 10 years, if we're still even printing, okay? So that's why this image has to exceed every possible model of printer we have now, okay? You get it? So it has to be able to exceed whatever any model we presently have, so that as printers begin to be improved even more, okay, proceed, in other words, to be improved even more in the next years down the road, then this image will still be what? Relevant. Yes, that's what you want, relevancy. So this image should be able to serve us 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20, even more if we're still printing, if printers are even still being made. So that is the reason for that. All right, so while we are at the display, let's go ahead and load our soft proofing mode. So we're going to go to View, right up here, View, then click Proof Setup, Custom, and we'll get this cute little window right here. And I have loaded on here my own Pro Luster profile, okay? And we have it set at relative colorimetric and black point compensation. It doesn't really change that much. I can see it here. I can see 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24 changing a little bit. You see that? They're gone, almost blocked. And here they're brought out. Folks, I don't know what anyone has told you in the past. Always have black point compensation activated, please. You can see right here. Just take a look at this. Let me move this up if I may. Let's see if I can do that. Here we go. All right, watch what happens right here. These are your shadows. If your shadows contain detail, you will be losing them if you did that. If you undid black point compensation. Whereas now, I still have detail. Let's see. Here's 2. I can barely see it on my monitor. 4, 6, 8, 10. Watch what happens. Keep an eye on that. Practically gone. Look right here. Again, it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but will affect the look of your images. Okay? So make sure you never remove that little tick mark from the black point compensation box. Okay? It's up to you. You're the boss when it comes to that. But again, I tell you, if you value detail in your shadows, do not untick that box. All right, so now we have my own profile loaded. We're going to go ahead and view it under relative colorimetric. And we'll talk about that a little bit, relative versus perceptual. Review. Preview is undone. So now we see it in its raw form as displayed by the monitor. Okay. And now as it will be printed on the Pro 100 Precision Color Signature Edition and my own custom profile. This is what it will be printed as. Not these neon colors. Okay. The printer, these are beyond the capability of the printer. Okay. So get that through your heads. I mean, it took me a while to get it through my head. Notice, not much change is taking place on the other so-called normal images. See, I call these the normal images. Here, 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 there, there. Especially these. These are the most important ones. Okay. And these so-called displays or still lifes. And this is a color checkered passport card from X-Rite. So again, disregard this for now. This actually tells you how a profile will handle a transition from fully unprintable saturated level all the way down to black, and also from pure unprintable saturation level to white. So you're looking really, you're not looking for the ability to reproduce these ridiculous greens that are neon. I mean, they're just, they glow. And ink just doesn't glow on paper. Okay? Ink on paper does not glow. Okay? Again, understand that it's only something that happens invisible on your screen. So disregard that. Always, soft proof. If you get a result that you find a little bit odd, go ahead and soft proof that image under the profile that you use to print it with. And then you will see the true representation of those colors, the way the printer will reproduce them. Take a look at this. I want you guys to see the babies. Okay. This is the most important area in this whole image right here. Okay. This is with purely the way the screen represents this image or reproduces this image or displays it. And now with the profile on, just take a look at this. Forget this. Forget this down here. Don't worry about that. We'll just enlarge it to the point where you just see these 3 babies right here. Do you see any difference? See what I mean? No difference whatsoever. So as far as I'm concerned, because I'm not concerned about these colors at all, as far as I'm concerned, the profile that I made for the Pro 100 with Precision Color Signature Edition inks is about as close to perfect as possible. Why do I say that? Because I went ahead and calibrated my monitor, okay? And I do a lot of landscape and people photography. So as you saw, the untempered image of these babies was not changed at all by my profile. So my profile Unless the colors within that image are out of gamut. If the colors are in gamut, my profile will be able to allow the Pro 100 with that particular ink set and that particular paper to reproduce exactly, nearly exactly what I see on my monitor. It's never going to be absolute perfect, but you saw there was hardly any difference whatsoever. Let's look at this little baby right here. Off, on, off, on, off, on. Okay? I hope that comes through. Now, the strawberries, yes, some of those colors are indeed out of gamut. Watch what happens. No color proof or no soft proof, soft proof. No soft proof, soft proof. So the reds will not be as intense. Now, also keep in mind that the visual results that you see here are a bit exaggerated. In other words, I really don't mean exaggerated, but I mean a little bit overemphasized, in other words. So when you print it, you will get, ridiculously good reds. Have a look. Now the color may be off due to reflections and whatsoever and lighting and all of that stuff. But you can see how well that turns out. And this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for my printer to be able to reproduce that image without any editing, no soft proofing, nothing. That visually, to me, it looks correct. Now let me show you something that's really odd and show you what happens with these colors that are so beyond the realm of reality, really, that they simply just don't print correctly or don't even look correctly. These two colors right here, I want you to take a look. There's hardly any difference between the two, the way they are displayed by my not so fantastic monitor. Okay, the only thing you see is this difference here. Now there are differences in values, of course, and they will only show up when you softproof. Boom. This green here is supposed to be darker than this green here. And it only shows up when you softproof. Okay. Notice nothing happens here. This is a neutral area. Nothing happens. There's no difference. Let's look at other areas of this image. How about this area here? These are pretty intense colors, by the way. Not much except maybe here the sky. And blue, like I told you guys over and over, blue is a heck of a difficult color to print because just the inability of cyan and magenta commonly available inks to be able to mix together in whatever proportion needs to be mixed to give you an optical blue or cyanish blue or what we just call sky blue. However, for whatever the reason, oranges and reds seem to be able to be reproduced quite well. How about these yellows right here? Let's see what happens. Not much difference. I am toggling back and forth. This is with soft proofing on and soft proofing off. On, off. So again, this shows you graphically what's happening when you load a profile. Off, on, off, on. Now, right here, you can see a slight change. Okay. On, off. It actually got a little brighter. So that means my profile is doing something. It's trying to bring in some colors that may not be, printable, in other words, without that profile. This represents printing without a profile. In other words, just picking up the paper type in your driver and printing. That's all it recommends. Now let's go over to perceptual. So we're going to go ahead and choose preview, and then we're going to switch over to perceptual, and you will see a difference right here immediately. So perceptual is not going to do as good a job representing these colors here, okay, at all. So I always use relative colorimetric because what it does is colors that are outside, and I always explain it this way: a circular amphitheater with circular rows of seats all the way to the perimeter, the inside wall of the theater. And you pack it. Everybody that comes in gets assigned a color value, and that color value matches a seat. Okay. And everybody goes in and they look for their seat number and they sit down. Okay. Using relative colorimetric, every color that found a seat number that matched it can stay there permanently. Colors that are outside, that couldn't get into the room, are brought in but held only on the outside behind the last row. Okay? They are not given a seat. Okay? But perceptual makes everybody get up and, hey, go find a seat someplace in the center of the room. Everybody pile into the center of the room. That's so it's shifting everything to make room for the out of gamut colors that are outside. So it gives you a very unnatural looking result, okay? Because especially if you're shooting portraiture, you don't want to use perceptual at all, unless all of your colors were in gamut to begin with. Perceptual will force colors that were in gamut to be shifted to allow other colors that were not in gamut to be brought in. In other words, you have to make room for them. And in order to do that, you have to shift colors. Whereas relative does not do that. Everybody has their seat assignment and you do not move. So when I use relative, even if there are colors outside the gamut and they're brought into that very against the wall, if you will, they don't get to sit down against the wall. Those are colors that are probably not important anyway. Like these, okay? So my skin tones of those children or ladies or men, whatever, are not affected. And for portraiture, yeah, never use perceptual. It will not do a good job, especially also for like shots of bridesmaids, where their dresses may not be in gamut, okay? Or if they are in gamut, they will be pushed, shifted to allow other colors to come in. You don't want to do that. The last thing you want is angry, bridesmaids, because the color of your photographs do not match the color of their dresses. And that's what will occur when you use perceptual. Okay, so I am not a fan of it. I never use it. But here you can see the very graphic difference of how it works. So this is relative and this is perceptual. Look at these colors. Now also take a look at the other surrounding images. Wow, that was quite a change, especially here. Look at that. I mean, that is weird. This is not supposed to be happening. You're not supposed to increase. My zoom wheel is not working, folks. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can switch over here. Oh, that's because I got this window open at this point. But anyway, watch what happens here and here. It actually changes the oranges. Wow. It doesn't really affect these colors too much. You know why? They're in gamut. Okay, this image is nearly perfect. All of these colors are within gamut, okay, of most printers. So the only thing that is not in gamut are these uppermost saturated areas and this right here. So again, there are other rendering intents, but we only use perceptual and relative. Perceptual and relative. Not much difference, especially if you don't have that tick, dummy. Okay, now we can do it again. Perceptual. Watch what happens here. Not much difference between those three green patches when there should be. There you go. See that? What about right here? This is also important. Remember, these colors are difficult. Okay? Relative, perceptual. Look what happened between these two. Wow. Big difference. Okay. So that is that. Now, what can you do? So let's just say that I am now viewing this image Say this was an actual image site. Maybe, I don't know, let's switch over to an actual image, the one that I shot at Walt Disney World. And so let's go ahead and view it under so-called soft proofing conditions. Same profile. And black point compositions turned on. Take a quick look at this right here. We're going to look for any kind of changes in color when we deactivate the profile. Do you guys see any change at all? Right here, maybe. Watch. Right here, possibly. Let me get you to this region. Keep a close eye to this. Now, this is getting to the point where we're just kind of splitting hairs, if you will. But some of you may actually be that picky. And by that, I don't mean that as a derogatory term, but someone who is, after perfection, or as close as we can get. Okay, this is without the profile. This is with the profile. I think I'm actually improving the situation here. Without the profile, kind of dark and begins to get blocked. And with the profile. Now I can actually see detail here in these dark areas. So again, a good custom profile, an image that does not have colors that are just drastically out of gamut. That's what you need to have. So how does an image get to the point where, forget the standard image, because that has purposely some colors out of gamut for you to be able to, come in 10 years from now and still be able to use that image. But how do you get to the point where your own images may have colors that are out of gamut? Well, when you edit, you have to be very careful with saturation levels, because they all look good on your screen, and that does not mean that they will be able to be reproduced on paper. So very quickly, if you want to see what colors are out of gamut, there's a tool in Photoshop, View, Out of Gamut Warning. And now the warning is on, and there's not much difference. You know how you would know? Areas would be turned gray, just like a middle gray, okay? Watch what happens with the standard image. Watch what happens with all of these colors, including some of these reds. View, gamut warning. Look at that. All of these colors are out of gamut. This little ridge right here in the sunset is out of gamut. Everything that's gray is out of gamut, okay? And the only way to bring that into gamut, if this was an image, not the standard image, you're not supposed to tamper with that. If this was your own image, you would have to bring some of those colors down a little bit, okay? As far as saturation goes and so forth, so that they are brought into a point where you don't get this gray transformation of those areas like here. I mean, it's extremely visible right here. Everything that you see that's gray is out of gamut. And guess what? It will not print the way you see it on your monitor. So don't be shocked. This all came about because someone was printing a shot of some flowers that they, I don't know where they went to shoot it. And there were some pretty intense yellow flowers and colors and shades. Of course, as all of us do, they started to edit them in Photoshop. And so they proceeded to go file print and, send it to the printer. I don't know whether they let the printer driver control color or use the profile. I don't know whether they double profile or single profile. You know what I'm talking about. But they just weren't satisfied with the colors in the yellow realm, okay, the way they were being reproduced on paper. Oh, they just did not match the strong results I saw on my monitor. Well, that's because your yellow, those strong yellows were totally out of gamut, okay? And they were simply automatically brought down to a level that your printer could handle. And if you use perceptual, even worse, because it just forces everything in, with no regard of what happens to other colors that may have already been in gamut, that did not need to be shifted to allow the other ones to come in. They were shifted out of place, basically. It changes the color hue, it changes the saturation, It changes practically all the visual aspects of those colors by being shifted. Is it something that is day and night difference? No, it's subtle. It's subtle, but you will see it. And you look at your image right here, you look at this and you go, well, my red strawberries don't look as red as these. Of course, you saw that some of the areas on the strawberries were out of gamut. And that is done on purpose. This image has to exceed any printer we currently have. Okay? They're hoping that the image is good enough so when these incredible new technologies come about, that this image will still be able to serve us photographers who happen to print at home or in our studios. I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit. It's an eye-opener. Again, there's a lot more to explore about this. You can actually, if you have an image that does have problems, you can save it under soft proofing mode and then edit it somewhat so that it kind of resembles what you perceived it to be like. And while it is still sort of being controlled under soft proofing, in other words, through your ICC profile that you chose for that particular soft proofing, you should be able to get a more accurate representation of what it'll be on paper. Now you can also choose to simulate paper, but again, like I said, that is not really that accurate. So I tend to stay away from that. All right, let's check out to see who else is on here. And again, guys and gals, please take the chance right now to go ahead and post your questions. I really don't have a lot of subjects to talk about tonight, okay? It happens. Questions, comments, that type of thing have been a little bit dry this week, and people are just basically thanking me for whatever videos I uploaded, which weren't that many this week. I was too busy. And so, again, not a lot of questions were posed. So the way that I plan for these live streams is to try to address problems that people encounter during the previous week. Okay? I often also go back several months past and check to see what was being asked by them, by that, at that point that I may have, totally missed. Okay, so I got my Henry Stoffel here is saying, wow, 24 watching and only 8 likes. Yeah, that means that 16 viewers don't like this. Is that the case? God, I hope not. Please go ahead and hit the like button before you guys leave tonight. That way, you know who, YT, then, sees that there was enough interest in this live stream to maybe promote it a little bit. There you go. That's how we grow. Okay. So again, I'm not telling you guys have to do this, but it would be greatly appreciated if you did, as this is the way that you help out all of these live streams. Now, Bogus Law, and I'm not even going to attempt the last name. I'm using Color Monkey Photo. Ta-da! This puppy right here. Again, I love it. This is my baby. I got it for $3.50, which is still a lot of money. But, they were selling for $5 back in the day. So, lucky to be able to have gotten a good use model. But anyway, he's using it with the i1 Studio software, which is entirely fine. You can use that. The only problem is that you can't, I don't think you can officially register this unit because there's a mismatch, of course, in the models. But you can still use the software. And he's asking whether the results will be better. I don't think so. I think there's a few more options. It's been a while since I used the i1 Studio software. I think it has something a little extra about creating a black and white profile, which is a profile basically for just black and white printing. And but other than that, I don't think there was any increase in accuracy of profiles between the two. I think the software basically introduced some extra little features that were just, software specific and not necessarily meaning that you can, get a better profile or more accurate profile in the end. So yeah. But again, just keep on using it. If it works for you, it works for you. That's it. But again, I don't think there's going to be a difference between the two. You might as well use it because it's actually the software itself. I liked it a lot better than the original PhotoMonkey software. I really didn't like it that much. When this came out and I was made aware that you can actually use that unit with it, I immediately jumped on it. This is before I got this wild puppy right here. And again, now I just use that one, of course, because it's a lot more sophisticated unit and more accurate, of course. You pay that much money, you better get a little bit more accuracy and better results. Okay, Henry Stoffel from Medford, Mass. Henry Stoffel says, oh, yeah, 24 watching, only 8 likes. Okay, come on, you guys. You know what to do. Smash that like button. And let's see, Roger Guyard. Oh man, forget it. Just Roger from Norway. Alrighty. I served for like 3 months in Oslo when I was with NATO. And again, I didn't like those long nights. It was in the wintertime. But anyway, it's a beautiful city. For those of you who may not have ever gone to Norway, wow. It's amazing. Ron Calvatis from Saratoga Springs, New York. Paul Newell from Canada, out west, Western Canada. And Ron Calvatis says, don't know if this is within topic, but I struggled for years being able to calibrate photographic, wait a minute. Protaphic. Okay, I think you mean the Pro 1000 with Lightroom Classic and ASO monitor, maybe settings and pieces of software competing. Again, I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about profile creation? It's really, there's really nothing specific to it. It's a process you follow. And again, or do you mean calibrating the printer internally? Again, that is also an automatic process. So if you mean printing with the printer through Lightroom, and that means your monitor had better be calibrated, and I don't care if the monitor comes with its own calibrating internal software, nothing is going to be as accurate as doing it with one of these units, okay? Unless they also have a spectrophotometer built into the monitor. That would be the only way that I would accept that a monitor's internal calibration software is as good as an external spectrophotometer. So please, Ron, explain what it is that you are after, and I'll be more than glad to help you if I can. 200, Mike, evening from Brooklyn, New York. All righty. Okay, let's see who else is here. Oh, we got some more people. They were hiding. Let's see. Levite is here. And let's see. Wait a minute. Boy, I missed a lot. Hang on a second. Spike597 says to Boguslaw, I'm not positive, but I do think the Color Monkey Photo on Studio One using i1 software makes any difference in your calibration. I use Color Monkey and i1 Studio. Yeah. See, it's still the same spectrophotometer. In fact, the i1 Studio spectrophotometer is identical. I don't know why they did that. What is it that they changed? Really, I don't think they changed anything. They changed the outside look. It's kind of a light gray instead of black. So it's the software that changed. Speed Scout 21. Thanks, Jose, for all you do. Much appreciated from Chicago. Alrighty. His name is Gil. Levite Apparel is here. Adam McKenzie says, hey, Jose, Adam McKenzie from Jamaica. In Canon PSP, I am not able to make or see the dialog box that allows me to tell Photoshop to manage colors. You know what? If I remember correctly, you don't need to do that. PSP is its own entity. PSP takes over from Photoshop. PSP simply gets an imported version of the image you just edited. It goes into PSP. Just like I can do that with a QImage. I can go from Photoshop and export my edited image, or Lightroom even, my edited image directly to QImage and then print it within QImage. Okay, so PSP just takes over. Just pick your paper type. If you're using Canon papers on PSP, okay, with a Canon printer, of course, you simply pick the paper choice. That's it. It's all automatic. You don't even have to make sure your driver is set properly. Believe me, it's amazing. And also with QImage, now there's a feature, not now, but recently, that basically sets your driver so you do not double profile anytime, regardless of whether you let QImage Ultimate control colors or choose to let the driver control colors. QImage will make sure that always is one or the other and never both. Now with PSP, again, it's pretty much automatic. PSP is sort of foolproof. Pick the paper type. Again, Pro 100, Pro 1000, whatever Canon printer you're printing on. And as long as it's Canon paper, it is done automatically for you. There's not going to be a choice for you to let Photoshop control color. No, PSP takes over 100%. Sonic Ska SK. Wait a minute. Sonic SKJ. I liked. All right, that's good. Thank you so much. Levite Apparel, just smash that like button. Yes, I want to hear it smash. Okay. Speed Scout 21. You mentioned that your Pro 1000 now is able to print longer panorama length pictures. Is that firmware also available for the Pro 10? No, only the Pro 1000. Sorry. You know, they're not going to give us that, believe me. The Pro 10 has been around for years, and so far, no such gift. Now, the Pro 1000, I don't know what brought that on, really. I really don't know what brought that on. I don't know whether it was just a demand from owners or what. But they decided to go ahead and give us that now. Here's the thing. I am using, remember those auto reset chips for the Pro 1000? Yeah, I have them loaded on my cartridges. So, is it going to disable them? I don't know. More than likely not. I don't think Canon is out there to police all of us who are refilling. Okay, they would have locked us out a long time ago. So I don't know whether that's going to affect the usability of these chips. Now, I realize they're not auto reset. Okay, that was a huge miscommunication from the sellers across the ocean to the Western Hemisphere, if you will, who are the biggest customers. So anyway, they'll work once, let's just say, and then after that you can disable ink monitoring if you so wish, whatever. But as far as the current chips that are at different levels being recognized and being allowed to continue to report levels and let me print, nice big 47-inch long prints after I, upgrade that software, maybe yes, maybe no. Who knows? I don't know of anyone who uploaded that firmware who also refills. Okay, they are all using OEM at this point. And so I really don't know. There's no reports to say otherwise, but that's because none of the persons that have done it are actually refilling. So I would need a refiller like Mike from Precision Colors. He's going to do it. So that will tell us, because he's using the same chips I'm using. So that will tell us everything, that it will either not work or work. Okie doke. Let's see. All right, so John Hamby or Hamby? Darn, just logged in. Okay, you're still early, John. No problem. We still got a lot to talk about. Grant Lasur says, got mine on eBay for a similar price. Yolanda Rose says, I was able to purchase my Color Monkey photo after seeing yours for about $220. I'm sorry. They bargain at twice the price. Yeah. I mean, you could get them. You can probably get them, around that price range. And I mean, what could possibly go bad on them? Maybe the internal light. That's the light that has to be calibrated every time. And it's got an internal little piece of like ceramic calibrator. Actually, on the bigger unit, the i1 Pro 2, see that white circle right here? That's the calibration ceramic circle. And so a light from the spectral is shined on top of that, and then it reflects back, and it has to reflect the same value, the same color temperature, let's just say. And so the light itself will be calibrated, will be made a little bit cooler, a little bit yellowish, a little bit whatever it needs to be, warmer, colder, so that it matches the standard that that little ceramic circle is. Okay, so that's how it's able to then reproduce results over and over and over, because every time you use it, you have to calibrate it. They're wonderful. They're wonderful. There's nothing really better out there. All right, the Pro 1000 firmware update is specific to the printer. That's what Spike 597 said. So it is only for the Pro 1000. All firmwares are specific to the printer model. John Hamby says, where is the new Pro 1000 firmware? I just ordered the Pro 1000. Oh, funny you should ask. Here we go. I had this already preloaded here, and I want to make sure you guys do this correctly. You can just basically, this is a very long URL here. Let me see if I can copy it and post it. So here it is. Grab it, save it, do whatever you wish, and you will land here, okay? And it knows this is for the Pro 1000. Otherwise, you can just do a search for like Canon driver support. And make sure you go to the Canon site, not some other third-party driver finder for you, because they usually have a lot of malware associated with them. So just go to the actual Canon. If you live in the USA, I always go to Canon USA. And then enter the name of the printer, and it will take you here. So here, this is driver software, manuals, apps, firmware, and so forth. I'm going to click on firmware. And now, please take a quick look. It identifies your OS. So I'm running Windows 10, 64-bit. Okay. If that is not your OS, say it made a misidentification, because it automatically finds out your actual OS. And take a look all the way back to some of these older OSs, including Linux. So go to firmware, and you want to download the one for either Mac or Windows. Mac download, Windows download. That's where you get it from. Alrighty. So again, if you're gonna be refilling these cartridges, then maybe you shouldn't immediately update the firmware. I think if you choose to do that, then be aware that when you invest in chips and that sort of thing for your refilling purposes, which now basically only single-use chips seem to be working correctly, it may or may not inhibit the use of third-party chips. That's what I'm trying to say. Probably not. I'm waiting for someone to tell me otherwise. And if that is the case, then I will go ahead and install that, or attempt to do that. Yeah, you need to go to the Canon site, Canon website, then into support and pick the Pro 1000 from there. You will see downloads of various types. So you have applications. You can download the media configuration tool, the accounting manager tool, which will allow you to keep track of your expenditures during your print jobs for the Pro 1000. Be aware that not only will it track your ink usage, because you have to sort of program the actual software by entering the cost of each cartridge. Okay, so here we have a cartridge that may be, $59.99. So you enter that amount for, what color do we have here? Matte black. And you do that for all of your 12 cartridges, and then you go back and figure out all of the papers that you print on, all of the sizes that you print on, and how much do each one of those sheets cost. Okay, you pay $50 for a box of 50 sheets, so that would be $1 each sheet. If it's $200, that would be $4 per sheet. You see what I mean? So enter the size, enter the price. And so when you load a job that says 13 by 19, and you load some 13 by 19 paper on the Pro 1000 and hit print, and say it doesn't run a cleaning cycle because you just printed something yesterday and it ran a cleaning cycle then, it will then compute down to, I think, like 0.00 ml. That accurate, the amount of ink that it takes. And now that it knows the amount of ink that it took, okay, it can then compute the price for the total ink used. And that will not include, let me tell you, as I said in my very lengthy video not long ago, I hope you guys watched that. I know it's long, but I spoke about everything about the Pro 1 that I happen to know about. And I think I discussed that pretty much, beat that horse to death last week anyway. So after you get printing anything, regardless of size, anything, whether it is big, 17 by 25, or whether it is a 4 by 6, after every print job, it runs a little head re-priming, if you will. And that requires a certain amount of ink. Maybe people have said many different numbers, but I think it's more like a fraction. I'll just leave it at that. A fraction of a milliliter of ink. That's total. So what it is doing theoretically is making sure that all of the nozzles are primed and ready to go the next time you go and print. And also keep in mind that anytime you send a job to the Pro 1000, even if it prints without a pre-cleaning cycle, and the print emerges and you have it in your hands and nothing else comes through for like 30, 40 seconds. I just did that. I just proved that to myself on the Pro 10, not even today. I was making 3 copies of this, okay, this card that I made on Red River cardstock. After all 3 were printed, I stood there looking at them, and I liked the way they look, much better than the original. It was a huge improvement. And all of a sudden I hear this noise, and that's the nozzle plate or the purge sponge, many names. It's known by many names, being emptied by the vacuum pump, okay? And that basically occurs because it knows that, hey, 30 seconds went by or 40 seconds went by and Mr. Joe did not send another print job. So I'm going to assume he's done for the afternoon. So that's what happened. So it does that every single time, but that doesn't take into account that little extra head priming that after every single print, it will do that. So on the Pro 1000, I would not be making tiny little prints like this, because every time you do this, you waste a fraction of an ml of ink re-priming the printhead. If I make 100 of these, you can imagine 100 times whatever fraction of the ml. That's very wasteful. and it's not really performing that to clear nozzles. It's just making sure that the printhead is ready to print next time primed, whether it needed it or not. It's just a precautionary step that it takes, but it does waste ink. So keep that in mind. Just use that Pro 1000 for big, luscious prints, please, not for tiny little prints that you have multiples of. Use another print. Get another printer just for that. If you're going to be making tons of little 4x6 snapshot type prints, just get a very small letter size printer and just use it for that. Okay? You'll save your big printer for the really important jobs, making big, luscious prints. All right, Ron says, where do I find out how to calibrate monitor with a Pro 1000? With Pro 1000, with ASO monitor, which has built-in sensor for taking readings. I use Lightroom also for this. Okay, I think you asked that already. Did I miss that? If the monitor has a built-in spectrophotometer, then you have to calibrate your monitor. Where do you find out to do that? How about the instructions? I don't know. I do not have an expensive ISO or ASO monitor. Okay, I have to do that externally, manually, with one of those instruments I just showed you. The little one is $500. The big one's $1,500. Yeah, it's not a cheap thing to get into, believe me, but you have to calibrate that monitor. How do you calibrate your monitor? If it has an internal spectrophotometer, then again, I assume that the instructions that came with it will show you how to do that. But you don't calibrate the Pro 1000. You calibrate your monitor and you print with the Pro 1000. And then you compare the results. Where'd I put that? Right here. You compare the results. This is the print that emerges. This is Pro Luster paper from Canon. I choose Pro Luster. Let the driver control color. Default settings. Print. This comes out. I bring it over to my monitor. I look at it like this and I make comparisons. Oh, this matches my monitor. Done. You're ready to go. Oh, this does not match my monitor. This looks perfect to me, but my monitor's rendition is not. Guess what? It's not calibrated properly. Simple. As simple as that. How you go about doing that? Again, this is a specific instrument, so you need to look into the instructions that were hopefully provided for you so that you can then figure out how to use that internal calibration system. And again, I don't know how accurate that is because I just don't own one of those. I don't think I can afford one at this point. So, knock on wood that this puppy right here in front of me continues to last and continues to behave the way it's behaving, which is pretty much flawless. I know it cannot produce perfect rendition of those weird colors in that standard image, but you know, for everything else, it's really serving me quite well. Alrighty, so Levi again says hi. John Hamby. Does anyone use Affinity Photo? I haven't received my Pro 1000 yet. I have my fingers crossed. No, I have not. Do I even have that? I don't know if I have that at all. I don't think I have it. I really don't have any need for it, to tell you the truth, because I'm pretty much standardized using Photoshop for anything that requires a little bit beyond images, like something that requires a little bit of graphics. Like when I did this job for my gentleman friend, I used Photoshop, okay, because it did require scanning and some editing that maybe Lightroom would not be able to accommodate. So image from my cameras, everything that has to do with continuous tone images, Lightroom is my tool. And again, I really don't have a need to go to something else at this point. I haven't really tested it. Hey, take a look on YouTube. There are tons of Affinity videos on YouTube. And again, that's what I would do if I was you. That's what I would do if I wanted to start using Affinity. So check out YouTube. I know absolutely sure there's a ton of tutorials available as I speak. Ron Calvatis says, I suspect I'm doubling up on the profiles with different softwares trying to control color. Yeah. A piece of food there. Yeah, that's the most common mistake everyone makes. Absolutely. That's why QImage is so cool right now. Let me give you a quick demo. If you guys have, I know I sound like I'm, a salesman for QImage. No, I'm not. I'm not at all. When I find something that works and provides me with the ability to do something correctly every single time, then yeah, I will go ahead and promote it. That's why I promote, inks from Precision Color so much. So let's go ahead and let me just find, I don't know, let's see. Whatever. Here's a picture. My oh, here we go. We'll just load this one here. All right. Just a snapshot. Okay, so Pro 1000, since everybody's talking about it. So for Pro 1000, Photo Paper Pro Luster, and I have I believe this is actually the OEM profile for Pro Luster, or is it? Yeah. So let's quickly look in here a second. Relative colorimetric. And yeah, so these are the actual OEM profiles. Now let me go ahead and cancel that a second. Did you guys notice that I just randomly came in here in QImage? Okay, think about this. I just randomly came in here in QImage and loaded the Pro 1000. It was already loaded from the previous time. But let me go ahead and change my printer. Pro 100. Okay, still luster. Well, the last time I printed on a much smaller size. So we're going to go ahead and just remove all of that. Let me get it back to a larger, like letter size paper. All right, so we're going to load my image. Boom, it loads it as best it can. Fit it all around perfectly. But that's not what we're going to talk about here. So let's go ahead and change my paper type to Pro Luster. Again, it tries to go back to that original setting, but that's okay. That's okay. See, it wants to do what you last did. All right, so here we go. We'll just enlarge that to sort of fit. There we go. Okay. Again, this is not important. We're not worried about the layout. I'm going to show you something that no other tool in this planet that I am aware of can do for you. So Pro Luster, right? We just changed this back. I think it was Platinum N that it had defaulted to. Let the driver control color, it says here. So what do we need to have in this situation? QImage is saying it's going to let the driver manage color. So, there's only two entities that can manage color, either QImage or the driver, not both. So, let's see. What entity do you think should be managing color? Hello? You see that? Let the driver manage color. So let's go ahead and go and jump into the properties for that printer. And see that it's photo printing, luster, high, 8.5 by 11. Wow, exactly the way I had set it here. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Remember, this is not the driver right here. This is not the driver. This is the application. This is QImage. But yet, remember, it was set at 4:6, and I set it actually here, not necessarily inside the driver, did I? But look at that. It is set to the same size paper, the same type of paper. Now, let's click right here. Color intensity manual adjustment. Click and open. matching. This better be not set at none. This better be set to allow the driver to control color. ICM, bingo, that's it. ICM, standard, and auto. And we're going to change that to relative colorimetric like we always do. So auto, what does auto mean? Anyone can guess? Anyone? Auto means that the driver on its own is going to use this profile right here. You like auto? I think I like auto if it's done correctly. Okay. I always like to think for myself, but if something is going to be performed automatically for me, it better be performed perfectly every time. Okay, so auto means that it's going to choose this paper profile for me. So basically it's printing through the ICC profile, which means I'm going to get, according to my monitor, being calibrated correctly, and assuming there's no autogamma colors here, I should get a pretty matching rendition of this image here. Okay, let's get out of here. So hit OK. But now I'm going to switch things. Okay, now I'm going to tell, hey, I want to print on, I want to print on Pro Luster, but I want to use Joe's custom profile. Uh-oh. Let's find Joe's custom profile. I'm going to click on here. Now watch what happens. Click on this little hourglass right here. This little, not hourglass, but magnifying glass. It says suggest. So look what's here among this group of OEM profiles. Joe's profile. You know how many profiles I have? Did you count them all? Isn't that amazing that not only did it show me Pro Luster as the #1 profile, okay, in its suggestion, it showed me the #3 because it thinks I want to print that. But it actually highlighted this one here, which is the correct one, but also allowed me to very quickly find my profile. So we're going to go ahead and load that. Boom. Now my profile is loaded. I want you to watch really carefully right here, somewhere here, what's going to happen. So what did we do? What did we do that was totally different? We now are telling the driver to not control color. Watch. Printer driver color matching settings have been auto-applied. And look what happened here. It no longer says that QImage is going to allow the driver to control color. How can we be sure that that setting in color intensity manual adjustment has been switched over to none, which is the correct one? Because now, see, new entity, QImage. QImage is controlling color through Joe's profile. So the driver could not possibly be controlling color at the same time, or you would be double profiling. But we didn't set it, did we? We forgot to change it. Let's go here. Okay, if this is now telling me that it's a none, then we know automation worked. None. There you go. And you must, if you're still asking why would I not use QImage, then I just don't know. Okay, I just do not know. All right. Let's see. There was something else that we were going to compare here. What was that? Yeah, that was it. Yeah. A way to print without actually double profiling every single time. QImage allows you to do that. I really don't know of any other tool that prevents you from making that mistake. You know, because even if I did it manually, watch. I'm going to manually set it. Let me see what will happen. Let me see what will happen if I actually set it to ICM. Driver, printer driver color matching settings have been auto-applied. And you saw me manually change it, so we're going to go back and check. I set it to ICM manually. None. See that? It prevented me from making a fatal mistake that would result in a really, really bad rendition of this image. And again, like I said, and if you're still wondering, why should I continue to use, or why should I even bother purchasing QImage? I can't help you then. It is fantastic. Just fantastic. Okie doke. So again, double profiling is something that you would never have to worry about, simply put. So that will not happen in Photoshop, okay? That will not happen in Lightroom. You better manually set those choices to either let the driver, through the color matching tab, ICM, if you want to let the driver print through a Canon ICC profile on a Canon paper, okay? Or in QImage, I'm printing with Joe's profile, okay? I chose it. The minute I assigned that profile, it changed the settings in the driver to none, because it knows that the driver would normally be also profiling through the Canon profile, as well as my profile. You see, so it cannot allow it to do that. So it automatically turns that off for you, which is quite amazing. And also, let me see if I can come up with another way to show you one of the other features that were implemented. And I sort of went into it a little bit. So QImage. And again, I'm just trying to, bring out some of the features that some of these tools have that just makes your printing so much easier. I mean, it's just amazing. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Pro 1000. So we'll just find a Pro 1000 series. Boom. And don't worry about this. We'll just leave the layout like that. We don't care. What I want to do is make sure that you guys get this. So let's for instance, say that you are, printing on a I don't know, some odd fine art paper, but the paper manufacturers tell you to use Premium Fine Art Smooth, okay? So we'll choose that paper, and notice now there's a little warning flag here, a little warning triangle. We're going to go over here, and I got Fine Art Smooth. This is set, I don't know what that's set at. I need to check ICM. So it thinks that we're going to be printing through what? Through that actual paper. So it's going to say, hey, you have to put it through the so-called manual feed. You look, the other feeder is not even available. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and accept all of this. It's okay. We'll accept all of that. We're going to accept the leading and trailing edge border. Boom. And there you go. Let me load that again. Boom. So now we have a white border on the right, a leading edge border, trailing edge border, and a border on the left. Borders all around. That's what happens when you print fine art media. But still letting the driver manage color. But what if this was a paper that was extremely similar but made by Hahnemuhle or Moab, and they just tell you to use that paper setting, okay? Because physically, the paper is very similar. So the only drop-down menu, remember, maybe you did not do a custom media configuration, so you're going to have to use a similar paper choice from the Canon driver. Okay, keep that in mind. But you're using brand XYZ fine art paper, whatever. Here, watch what happens. And then when you go to suggest, remember, we switch from one paper to another. Premium Fine Art Smooth, automatically at the top of the list. Now, if I had created a profile, okay, if I had created a profile for this paper from Hahnemuhle or Moab that physically, thickness, surface, matches that Premium Fine Art Smooth from Canon, I would name it Canon Pro Dash 1000/500 and then give it a very similar name. Okay. And by doing so, it may even show up as maybe the second choice. Okay. Remember my profile, it showed up down here, but it still showed up within that group of paper profiles for the Pro 100, didn't it? It was there. It was easy for me to find. I didn't have to search through those hundreds of profiles just to find my own profile. Well, had I named it a little bit like drastically different, it would have never been associated with this particular printer and paper choice. So this tool allows you to pretty much automatically end up at the correct profile. Let's just choose another Canon paper. Let's jump over, drastic jump. Photo paper semi-gloss. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and remove that border, this ridiculous border restriction. We're going to go here, blah, 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 and get into the actual properties. We're going to choose 8.5 by 11, no borderless. And we're going to take this and set it back to ICM. Something totally off, okay? Look at that. Top feed is available now. And boom. And so this image is kind of squarish, so it's going to be cropped somewhat, as you can see. Let me see if I can resize it. Again, we're not worried about the layout. We just switched to a totally different paper. Now, let's go ahead and go here in the suggestion, magnifying glass. Look at that. What did we just choose? Photo paper plus semi-gloss. Photo paper plus semi-gloss. There it is at the top of the list. And we choose that one. So pretty much automatic profile finding capabilities or loading. Okay. Again, what more do you want? What more do you want? Okay. So these are little features that were sort of suggested by people in their forum. They have an internal forum within the QImage Ultimate website that people just interact with. Mike Cheney, too bad he wasn't here tonight because he might have corrected me anything I did wrong. Again, he's the expert, he's the creator, so he knows best. But anyway, these features are just invaluable for me. It just makes my printing so easy that I don't have to worry about making silly mistakes, which I still make. We all do. And so something that prevents you from making a mistake and still gives you that ability to manually check to see if the tool is actually doing things correctly instead of just, you blindly relying on something being automatic. Some people do that. Okay. You know what I'm talking about? I hope you do. I'm not going to get into that. But some people just rely on automation to the point where they don't really know. If I give you the third degree and I ask you, are you sure you're not double profiling? You know what? I really don't know, they say. I really don't, because there's no way for them to check. Because it's all automatically done behind your back. I want to be able to check and see and verify that, yeah, that action, automatic action that QImage took is indeed correct, the correct one. So that's, again, for me, that is just a great feature. And like I said, I edit in Lightroom and I just basically export out. Okay. And I think that was it for subjects. Boy, are we going to call this early tonight? Shoes, it's not even 2 hours yet. Let me see what else we got here. Let me see what we have missed. Okay, so I just realized that the link that I posted is for the European site, okay, for Canon. So those of you that are in Europe, you will have to go ahead and use that link. And those of us here in the US will use the Canon USA website. And then again, just look at driver support and you will find the new firmware. Okie dokie. Let's see. Faye Holloway says, I just joined you first time. My printer is printing very faded. Not sure how to fix it. That's like saying my car is making a strange noise. printer, model, make, inks that you're using, papers you're printing on, settings that you're using in your driver. You get the drift. I don't mean to be, insulting in any way, but that's like saying to the doctor, I have a pain. He's going to give you the third degree and ask you a million questions. You wouldn't leave that as a message in your doctor's message center. We're here to help you, but you have to help me by giving me a lot more details, pertinent details, okay? The printer is blue. That means nothing as far as how it prints. So the pertinent details will be the make, the model. Are you using OEM inks? Are you using third party? What papers are you printing on? How are you setting up your driver settings? Are you double profiling by accident? Are you using a profile and telling the driver not to control color? All of these things. I need to know everything. So otherwise I can only guess. Okay. And I'm sure no one here will be able to answer that because it's just unanswerable. By the way, if you guys are interested in a pretty interesting video, I did a video called Questions That Are Unanswerable or That Have No Answer. Printer questions that have no answers. And I go through quite a few questions that people tend to ask on a daily basis, and they really have no answer. So that'll open up a lot of insight, give you some insight as to how printers operate and some of the misconceptions that people have about how they operate. One of the most common ones is, how many prints can I get with an ink set, a set of cartridges? And I always answer, I have no idea. What do you mean, how many prints can I? It's like that would be like saying, I have a 55-gallon, barrel of paint. How many houses can I paint with that? You see what I mean? What size houses, right? How many coats? Lots of different, with printers it's even more difficult because you have so many different colors of ink. And the colors are used at extremely different rates, okay? So it's not like all of the levels are just dropping basically at the same rate. No, they're dropping at all sorts of different rates. So the minute one of them goes empty, you may have all sorts of different levels on the other colors. Your printer stops working. You got to replace that one color before you can continue printing. And then other colors are brought down. So there's no way that you can compute when cartridge number 8, the final one, is empty. No, because you've already loaded, replacements for the other 7 colors. You see, so traditionally speaking, a letter size standard image, okay, that's our standard, will use up about 1.5 to 2 milliliters total ink, whether it's a 9-color printer, 6-color printer, or 12-color printer. About 1.5 milliliters to 2 milliliters of ink total. So that's the only real number I can provide you, because there's no way to figure out how many prints, and they don't even say what size prints, right? So yeah, again, one of those questions without an answer. Okay, let's see. What settings are you suggesting for the best video results for the Anafi drone? Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Got to go back one. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I went down too far. Forgive me. Okay. Faye says, printer is Epson. Epson what? You know how many models Epson and Canon makes? Yeah, dozens. So I need to know what. And I need to know everything that I named, that I described, because it could be anything. It could be anything at all. So I need to know the model. It better be a photo printer, or else I really cannot help you, because I don't have anything else but Epson photo printers. Okay, so they have to be of the photo printing category, not a desktop with a scanner or something, intended for document printing. Okay, John Hamby, are the inks from Precision Colors safe? I know I have to stick to OEM red, blue, yellow. Well, you don't have to stick to those. It's just that that's what they sell in their, I assume you're talking about the Pro 1000 here. So, yeah, how safe are they? 100%. Yeah. What are you worried about? Um, what you need to worry about is refilling those cartridges correctly. That's the part that comes down to you. And so you are the the baseline here. The inks are fine. The inks are perfect as far as reliability, mechanical reliability, if you will. Okay. Matching OEM? Nothing matches OEM. Okay, nothing. Do they come close? Yes, indeed, they do come close. Are they safe? Yes, indeed, they are safe. So the refilling of these cartridges and the ability to make them able to then provide the proper ink level to your printer, that's up to you. If you follow the process as indicated in my videos and also their videos, you should not have any problem at all. Yeah, I'm using all OEM on my Pro 1000. The only, well, actually no, the grays are Precision Colors. The light versions of magenta and cyan are Precision Colors. Everything else is OEM, because the Chrome Optimizer, simply OEM, is just the best. Okay, nothing of the third-party category, Chrome Optimizer or Gloss Enhancer in Epson or Optimizer in Epson's, even come close to OEM. They just do not. I don't know why they can't duplicate that formula. Pimentel Portfolio says, what settings are you suggesting for the best video results on the Anafi drone? I'm still exploring that. Okay, I'm still exploring that. There is so much to learn and so much in the driver to access that, and the fact that I haven't been able to fly around here to the extent that I would like to, because I am restricted. I'm in the DC area. I am surrounded by no-fly zone. So when I do it in my backyard, I better not go up too high. I am like maybe 20 feet up in the air max, unless I really get brave. I did it in the street, and that was not too kosher. But anyway, when I do go to Nathan's house, that area is available for flying. And so what I will be doing is exploring some of the different built-in settings on the so-called application. If you know anything about lookup tables and LUTs, LUTs are, call them plugins or filters that you apply to video and apply a look. Just like Hollywood movies, they all have so-called color grading. Well, I let my Anafi fly in Plog, what they call Plog, and then I apply correction in my Adobe Premiere application. So let's not get too much into that. At the end, I may show you a video that I just did, and in case you guys haven't seen it, I'll show it to you real quick. Okay, Spike597 says, to run, do an internet search for ASO monitor calibration. That will show you. Yeah, I think so. Adam McKenzie says, can you please explain how to avoid double profiling? I let the printer manage color, and there is some additional steps to be taken. Yeah, if you let the printer manage color, you have to tell the printer to manage color. It's not just letting the printer manage color in Photoshop or Lightroom. You have to go in the driver and do what I just did. Set it in the Canon world, set it to color matching ICM, okay, and then auto, okay, you get it? And if you're going to let the application control color through an ICC profile, then you turn that off. You set it to none in the driver. If you use QImage, it's done automatically for you. Okay, it's one or the other. Manually done in Windows operating system, you have to manually go into the driver and turn that on or off. Okay, when it comes to Epson printers, it's just called something different. Okay, and you set that to off or on, none or yes, and so on. So say for instance I print on Photoshop, and in my let me just quickly load Photoshop. The best way to do it is to actually show you how to do it. So because it doesn't matter where you do it from, okay, it'll basically be the same thing. I got a little problem here with my installation here, as you can see. I don't understand what that means. I'm a subscriber to Photoshop and it's been doing that lately. So anyway, let's go here and print this. Okay, let's go and print that. File, print, and I'll do it in a Canon printer as well as a Epson printer for you. It says remember to enable printer's color management in the print settings dialog below. Why? Because here it says printer manages colors. You see? All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Printer settings, color intensity manual adjustment, matching, ICM. See, it was turned off. Auto, right there. And boom, and boom. Now I'm ready to print to the Pro 100, letting the driver control color. Printer manages colors. Okay, now let's change it over to Photoshop manages colors. Now my profiles are made available. You see that? Before they did not. Okay, now my profiles are available. If this happens to be the profile that I'm using, then that's the profile that I will use. Okay, we'll change this to relative. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it was on absolute. Black point compensation. We're going to go here. Remember, Photoshop is wanting to manage color now. Okay, and using that profile. We cannot let the driver also manage color. So we have to manually come in here, click on this box, click on it again, click on matching, and changing this to none. Boom, and boom. And now we're ready to print, okay? You follow me? Let's go ahead and choose an Epson printer, P800. How about that? Printer manages color. Okay, notice that the profiles are turned off. Printer settings. We don't care about the paper at this point. Look what it says right there, ICM. Okay, that's what we want, just like in Canon. This is ready to be used. It's going to load up a profile matching this paper right here, or that paper, or that paper, or this paper, whatever paper, any of these papers. If you choose a paper, semi-gloss, and it's set to ICM here, mode ICM, it's going to use that profile, okay? But it's going to do it internally within the driver and not out here in QImage world, okay? Let's go ahead and save that. Now let's go ahead and change this to Photoshop. Oh, this wasn't QImage, sorry. In Photoshop world. And let's see. We're going to let the printer manage, the Photoshop manage color. And we got to say, well, wait a minute, what paper are we using again? Jose, let's quick take a gloss. Oh, it's premium photo paper semi-gloss. Okay, good. We'll get out of there and we'll load premium. Wow, what a mess. Look at this. How in the world am I going to find my profile? Well, usually they'll be at the very top. So semi-gloss right there. That's a lot more difficult than in QImage. Okay. Notice all of the hoops I have to go through. So, okay, we loaded the correct paper profile for semi-gloss. Now we got to go to print settings. And look at that. Off, no color adjustment. There you go. That's what you need. Not ICM, because ICM would cause the driver to also load that same profile. What does that mean? Profiling here, double profiling. The results will be horrendous. So off. Boom, print. I hope that answered your question. It's one or the other, never both. Now with QImage, those setting changes will occur automatically, okay? I don't know of anything that, other than PSP for Canon, that will make changes to the driver color matching settings in a Canon printer, or even an Epson printer. An Epson printer will also be changed to the correct color management setting, either off or on. If you tell QImage to control color, it will suggest a profile to match your paper for you. And you load that, and then automatically the driver would be set to no color management or no color matching, like none. If you tell QImage to let the driver control color, whether it's a P800, the Pro 1, the Pro 10, the Pro 100, any printer that I have, its driver will be set to control color, okay? And if you're using a Canon paper or an Epson matching paper, the correct profile will be loaded for you automatically. I don't know how else to make it easier, okay? John Hamby says, I'm binge watching your videos. Thank you. Let the ads run, please, please. I know it's a pain. But the ads do pop up either in the beginning or the middle or the end even. Please let them run. That's the only way we support the channel, okay? That's the way YouTube works. It relies on that ad revenue, and so do we. How can I buy papers? How can I buy inks? How can I buy this or that to test? Okay. Alrighty. When I watch other people's channels, I respect that aspect of it, especially the smaller channels. And we're about midway, 26,400, I think we hit today. So again, I understand if they only have 1,000 subs, they need to grow. The only way to help them grow is to show YouTube that we, the viewers, support the ads that they put on the videos. Okay, it doesn't mean that I have to click on them, but I have to let them run so that the creator gets that bit of revenue that they generate. Okay, I know it is a pain, but if you're binge watching and an ad pops up and it's 30 seconds, go to the fridge. That's what I do. I go to the fridge, I grab something, come back. I watch them on my big TV upstairs, and that way, it's a better enjoyment for me anyway. The only negative aspect of that is that if I want to leave comments, you can't on the TV. So better than on a little phone, though. You know what I mean? So again, but that's all I ask of you guys. Just let those ads run. It helps the channel tremendously. Believe me. Alrighty, let's see. Ron Calvadas says, Adam McKenzie, you and I are having the same problem, I think, with profiling. Yeah, just be careful. It's one or the other. Either the profile is used in Photoshop. That means you let the application control color. Photoshop controls color. You turn that aspect off in the driver. Okay, you may have to manually do that every single time. Now, here's a suggestion for you guys. If you're using Windows, default your printer to always not print with color management. Okay, you can do that. You can default it to a no color managed workflow. Okay, that way you always control color, say through Photoshop or Lightroom or QImage. QImage is automatic though, so you don't have to worry about that. But you know what I mean. Whatever application you use to print, it will always control color through an ICC profile, whether it is OEM, whether it is custom made by a paper manufacturer, or you yourself made it, or I made it for you. It doesn't really matter. Okay, always set up your driver to be defaulted to no color management. How do you do that? Easy. Let me show you. I'm showing you a bunch of new things here, guys. All right. So we're going to go to control panel. If I spell it right, it's dark in here. Okay. Devices and printers. And again, remember, this is Windows. I don't know whether you can do this on a Mac or not, but Pro 1000. So we're going to right click, printing preferences. And again, just simply clicking here, matching, and set it to none. And OK, and apply. And that's it. From now on, that driver will always be set to no color management. Simple. That's it. And so you don't have to worry about, double checking, triple checking. Gee, is my driver set correctly? It will be defaulted to that unless you change it from within an application. You can access your driver from Photoshop. You can access your driver through Lightroom. You can access your driver through QImage. And you can manually change things. But it should not be that way. You should not have to do that. Okay. As you saw earlier in QImage, I can just pick my media type inside QImage. Okay. I don't have to go to the driver specifically, unless I get a little warning triangle telling me, hey, something is not matching correctly. Jose, get inside the driver and check to make sure you got the right paper or the right size or whatever set. Again, it's just, another one of those watching your back type features, okay? So that you don't make a silly mistake when you hit that print button and you end up with the results you did not expect. That's what it is. You beat me to it, Spike. Spike said to Adam, the simple answer to avoid double profiling is to turn off color management in your print driver and allow the software to do the work. Well, you turn it off in the print driver outside of the software and you default it that way. And as long as the software doesn't, try to revert it back to some original setting, maybe it was at when you last used it. Sometimes that happens. But as long as you default it to no color management, it should always open up as, in that same condition. It should anyway. Adam McKenzie says, my printer is a Canon Pro 100. Well, you should be getting perfect results with the Pro 100. Wait, don't go yet. These are all with the Pro 100. Again, folks, once you get this, you can literally print blindfolded. I always joke about that, but I'm not kidding. Pro 100. This matches the monitor. Pro 100. And the best part is this. Let me show you real quick. Wait a minute. One and two. We'll just use these three. Three identical prints. Same image. Just done slightly different. Okay. And the slight difference will be secretly displayed in the back. Let me flip this correct orientation here. Okay. Here we go. We'll leave this one here for the time being. OEM. Again, disregard my bad lighting here, but this will give you an idea. OEM. This is the best that the Pro 100 can produce, period. Precision colors. Let's line this up. And I'm gonna swing this left and right and up and down, kind of give you an idea as the lighting changes. But just look at the waves and look at the color and look at the darks. Let's look at the sunset here section of the photograph. PC signature editions on the top. This is PC. This is OEM. I mean, come on. If you're not getting results like this, you're doing something drastically wrong. Okay. This is printing with the driver. This is printing not the way we've been talking about. We're just simply telling the driver, hey, driver, use ProLuster paper. and do everything else automatically. Matching, ICM, auto. That's it. And just let the printer do its thing. No Photoshop controlling color, no Lightroom controlling color, no Q image controlling color. Just the driver. Bam. I brought it over here. I looked at it on my monitor. I almost fell off my chair because I thought this was not going to be that good of a match. Okay. And that's a surprising thing. And then he goes and introduces a new cyan ink, which just tweaked everything to the point where it was even that much better. And these new inks are going to be part of any new kit that he sells around now. It is October, isn't it? Yes, now you will be getting the new cyan ink. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's not that hard. It really is not that hard. Okay, it's just a series of things you have to sort of nail down. And I use the term nail down because once you nail it down, it's going to have to be really forced out. Okay, you know what I mean? It's going to have to be forcefully changed because it was nailed down. Once you nail it down, it's hard to change, isn't it? So nail down your monitor calibration. That's to benefit your editing. Okay, nothing else. The printer will still print whatever it gets from your computer. That's what the printer is going to spit out. Okay, the printer will spit out whatever you feed it. Whether that looks correct to you or not, that's not the printer's problem. Okay, if it doesn't look correct, it could be out of gamut colors, like I demonstrated early, or your monitor is not calibrated, and so you edited your images to look good on a uncalibrated monitor, or a monitor that is just plain off, and so the printer receives an off color image, and it reproduces this as it deems best, off color, or too dark, or too light, too magenta, too cyan. It's not the printer. If that, I do have, wait a second. Look what I have here. Bingo. This is from Precision Colors right here. This is a bigger one. This is a, I believe, 9x12. So this is PCSE New Cyan. Okay. And again, if it doesn't look neutral to you under this lighting conditions, that's the lighting conditions. It's not the print. This print is dead on neutral. And it matches my monitor when I put it against it. So once I get that level of matching, of course, this is not going to match. Actually, this matches pretty good from what the screen shows. That's it. Now my monitor is displaying colors that my printer reproduces faithfully, okay? Because I'm not able to say, manipulate my Pro 100 to change its output. You can't do that, okay? You can't do that. If I print with the driver, Pro Luster, choice, it only knows one way to output, okay? I cannot change that. The difference in output will occur after my editing, okay? So if my monitor is actually matching that display of that standard image from what the printer produced with just the driver, so I got now a match. Wow, I hit the lottery then. That's basically the goal. That's what we're all shooting for. A match from your monitor to the results of this image being printed with just the driver, okay? Everybody criticizes me. Why are you just using? Because I don't want to introduce anything that will alter the look of that image. Okay. I want the printer to just get the raw image and reproduce it. The printer is going to use a profile anyway. So you see, so you're still using a profile. Once the printer produces that and it looks great to me, and I come over here and I look at my monitor, I'm looking for neutrality. I don't worry about these colors at all. None. I could care less. I'm looking for neutrality right here. This and this long ramp. Okay, that has to look perfect. And is it overall too light or too dark? And you can judge that by looking at the blackest square and the next one up, and the whitest square and the next one down. Once you have that lined up perfectly, that's it. I give it the big green check to the printer. That printer is operating correctly. And oh my gosh, my monitor matches the output of my printer of that image. I'm all set. If it did not match, I'd have to pull this baby back up and recalibrate my printer. Simple as that. It may be a case of just lowering the luminosity, increasing it, or changing the color temperature, overall color temperature. And you could do that through your software easily until it matches. You don't want your neutrals to look slightly yellow. Remember, your eyeballs and your brain will immediately neutralize that as you're looking at it. Within a few seconds, it will look correct to you, even though it is not. So all your edits are going to be skewed because you subconsciously are adjusting for that. Okay, so be aware of that. This output will be neutral, and then you match it to your monitor. If your monitor's display is not neutral, maybe it's a little bit warm. You need to cool it down by increasing what? The white point temperature, the Kelvin temperature. Okay. D65 is what it defaults to. You may have to go a slightly higher setting. If the monitor is displaying this so-called gray area here as slightly bluish tint, then you need to decrease the temperature, warm it up a little bit until they both match. You're not messing with this. This is straight from the image, which you do not edit. Remember, you print it. This is your control, your baseline. Your monitor has to match this. Okay? That's the thing no one gets hardly ever. And so that's the goal. You need to match your monitor to that, not the other way around. You cannot match your printer to that. Your printer cannot be adjusted unless you start messing with those sliders. No. The raw printer by itself has to be able to reproduce that image correctly. Okay? And it will do that. It will do that. I guarantee you. Okay? So let's check to see what else we got going on here. Again, continue to ask questions, you guys. We got about another, we're getting close. We got 45 more minutes or so to go. I didn't think we were going to get that far. But again, don't take this the wrong way, because believe me, I struggled for 2.5 years. I think that's longer than most of you guys. If you guys just got a printer and you're having a few problems with color matching, that sort of thing, I struggle a lot more than you guys have. I went for literally 2 years, okay, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And every time I changed something, and did I look for instructions? Did I read anything? Did I listen to anyone? Oh no, I've been doing this since I was 11 years old. I've been shooting, and I developed pictures when I was 12. No, I know better. No, I did not know a damn thing. So therefore, finally, when I started getting somewhere is when I discovered some of these forums online, and I started joining the Epson group. And, I wasn't even using a Canon printer then at that point. And that's when I began to learn and accept that I was doing many things wrong. And so once I, got past that block, if you will, or hurdle, I immediately started to progress. And I mean, exponentially. And that's finally when I began to enjoy this, okay? Because I really was not enjoying it. Nothing was being put to paper because I just, this is garbage. None of these printers work properly. Who cares? Printing? Why should I do that? I have a computer screen. I can just look at my images on my screen. Well, again, you'll be surprised how quickly you begin to love something once you get past that wall, okay? And that's what happened to me. And I think that's why I began to do this, because I didn't want anyone out there to go through this stubbornness that I went through. Really, it was due to just me being stubborn. All right, so somebody here, wait a minute. Let's see. Adam McKenzie told Spike 597, just a moment, let me turn on my printer Okay, back to you. Okay, I don't know what that's about, but that sounds interesting. John Hamby says, I would group small prints together and a larger sheet, save on the ink purge. Yeah, you can do that. If you have a good trimmer, you can go ahead and definitely do that. QImage allows you to do that on a roll printer. Again, taking into account, like, it has intelligent pacing or placement of multiple size images on just your continuous, roll of paper. So many features, my friends. So many features for, like, I think it's $60 or $70. The best buy in town, let me tell you. And this just makes things, it just makes it so easy. Just so easy. There's some features I haven't even explored yet. And again, it's just, if you only had enough time in the day to learn everything, you would see how wonderful that tool is. Ron says, thanks, helpful. The printer doesn't get calibrated, just the monitor. Right. Don't misuse the term. You can indeed calibrate a Pro 1000, for instance. Okay. All that is to bring it to a factory standard, because it may be slightly off because of the tolerances that are allowed in a mass-produced environment. Okay. So calibration is available for the printer, but all it is doing is bringing it to a standard set by the factory. And the only time that becomes necessary or even relevant is if you have two Pro 1000s, one in New York, one in LA, and you want both of them to output exactly the same, so you guys can share files and images and profiles and that sort of thing. Because now these two, separated by 3,000 miles, Pro 1000s are outputting exactly the same, where they were not before calibration. Pro 1000s come with an internal densitometer that allows you to run a calibration step, and that is done during the initial setup of the printer, and that just brings that printer to a standard factory setting, which it may or may not be at, okay, out of the box. Simple as that. It's not a profile maker. No, that's not what it is for. Now, printing with the driver on Canon printers after calibration, oh yeah. Yeah, you will see how good that looks. But again, it's only for Canon papers. If you want to do that, in other words, you want to print with just the driver and you're going to be sticking to Canon papers, you don't need to, ever let Photoshop control color. Just let the driver do it. The printer driver will load the corresponding matching paper profile as long as you're using a Canon paper, not someone else's papers, Canon paper. And then after you calibrate your printer so that its output is, let's call it perfect, it really raises it up a little bit, another notch. In other words, your output will be even better, because not only is the printer calibrated now to factory standards, which it was not when it left the factory, it was within a range. Now that calibration brings it to the exact range. Okay, so now that profile, which was made on a calibrated printer, will be even better. Simple as that. That's the best way I can explain it. Art of Women Photography just landed here with us. Again, he lives in Australia where it's early morning over there, so I don't blame him. I hope you are having a good weekend, my friend, and let us know if you have any new shoots coming up. Scott S., he had a message, but he retracted it. John Hamby, great info about profiling. Spike597 says, Scott S., in Lightroom, go to Print tab. On the top right, scroll the panel to the bottom, and you will see the box called Color Management. Click on Profile. Yes. That's in the print module, right? PHVFX from Copenhagen. Or Ermums G. Banger. Wow, that's a good one. Depends on the colors in the print. Well, depends on the colors on the image, probably. I don't know what you're referring to. I found my third-party inks, the blacks, seem to disappear from the print after about 8 weeks. Yeah, that's because the blacks are horrible. Okay. the black inks on that particular third-party inkset is horrible. Okay, that will not happen with Precision Colors. Again, these are probably, oh, this is like from, I want to say mid-August. Okay, and it's as it was from the beginning. So again, black will fade, okay, and yellow will fade. When black fades, everything kind of becomes sepia looking. I'm sure you've seen that. When your black inks fade, it's due to the inks themselves, that particular brand. And you just need to find something better or go back to OEM. Stephen Baxter, trying to print with Epson SureColor P800 on my iMac with Windows 10 Boot Camp. Using correct ICC colors are washed out. No double profiling. Sample print gray strawberries look great. Why would your standard image look great then? If your standard image, think about this. If this image, are you saying that the strawberries look great but nothing else does? Or are you saying that when you print this image, it looks great, but then when you print your own images, it does not? The printer doesn't change moods, in other words, when it switches over to your images or this standard image, which, of course you don't edit, right? So if you print that image and it looks correct to you, I'm not going to say great because that's, neither here or there. But say it looks correct to you, then why should your images not? Well, the only factor I can come up with is that this one you do not edit, and your images you do edit. So the iMac monitor, how is it set? Is it calibrated? It's very difficult to calibrate an iMac, by the way. Nearly impossible. Okay, especially a laptop type, notebook type computer, whether it's Windows or Mac. The angle of the screen will shift the brightness of your display tremendously. So there's no way you can really truly calibrate a notebook type PC or Mac computer. And so if you are telling me, if this is what you're telling me, that the standard image looks correct, but your images look washed out, it's your images. Okay, simple. Assuming that, the printer is working correctly. What else can I tell you? The P800 is a wonderful printer. Okay, should be able to produce great results. Okay, again, I'll hit this one more time. If you open up your standard image and you print it, in other words, file print. I don't know what you do in Mac, but in Windows, file print, driver, you pick an Epson photo paper, you load that photo paper onto the P800, and you print it, and it comes out correct. Okay, and then your images do not. Guess where the change is? Okay, you see. Again, I'm not trying to be an ass, but you can see what I'm getting to. Okay, so that would cause a drastic change, and it's just the same thing on Windows. Okay, if you open up that image on Windows and you print it and it looks correct, and then you start editing your images, but your monitor is not displaying. See, because you don't care about what that image looks like in your monitor. You just print it. You just want to know if the P800 can reproduce that image correctly. And it does, but then your own images do not. You see what I'm saying? So that would be the only thing that has changed is your images. That's the unknown, your images, my images, anyone images. Okay. OEM ink he's using. He's got wait a minute. PGI 72 original cards. Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, I'll take them. Where are you located? I'll pay for postage if that's what you want. If you're going to give them to me, I'll be more than glad to take them. I need extra sets so that I can continue testing some of these new inksets that Precision Color is putting out. Yeah. Let me know. Let me know. Here's my email if you want to contact me. Make sure that I sure as heck did not type that correctly. There we go. All right. So yeah, if you want to contact me, just click on that email and send me the information. And I'll pay you something. I mean, I don't want you to throw them away. But yeah, going back to your problem, yeah, that might be the reason. Again, I always stress that the standard image is everything. So you open it and you print it, and then when you start editing your images, your monitor may not be completely calibrated. You may be skewing your images to the point where they just print differently because that's what you're sending to the printer. And I don't know of any other situation, okay, that I can provide you. So anyway, Will Carson says, "Hello, Jose from Southern California. Is there a recommendation for internal cleaning of the Canon Pro 10, such as recommended on Inkjet Mall for the Epson 3800 and so forth?" No, not really. The only thing I would suggest is to just make sure the platen, that metallic, shiny, chrome-looking plate across where the little rollers are, where the prints emerge and go under and such, keep them clean. That's all you need to do. Just clean the internal areas. Paper towel, soft paper towel, maybe a little Windex here and there, but mostly you can even just use plain distilled water. Just keep those areas clean, because if you print, to some degree, if you print borderless type prints, that develops that overspray that needs to take place because you have to print beyond the edges of the paper. And that just gets deposited all over the internal compartments of the printer. And at some point, it just accumulates to the point where they start to smudge any kind of future prints that you may run through there. So just every couple of months, just go in there and clean the area. Now, you're lucky that the Pro 10 doesn't automatically bring the printer to the middle. So you have to press that button to be able to move it to the middle. Just open up the central lid and just as far as you can reach, with a dampened paper towel, just go ahead and clean the areas. If there are any sponges near the platen region, just again, use wetted paper towel, Windex, and just kind of dab all of these areas and make sure that every surface is just kept as clean as possible. That's all. There's not really anything you do to the purge pad. I mean, that thing stays pristine anyway, because it does that after every print. After 30 seconds or so, it'll clean that purge pad for you. So nothing really to worry about. They're good printers, I'm telling you. People complain about all the noises and this and that. Believe me, it's doing a lot of things that you, I, or anyone else would normally want to do as far as maintenance goes. It does it for you. So I still don't get why people don't like Canon printers. They get so upset about what they do or what they don't do. They're doing everything for you, so you don't have to do it. Okay? Of course, nobody does it. Even if the printers don't do it for you, nobody does it anyway. And then 6 months down the road, they have smudges, they have blobs of ink on their prints, and that sort of thing. Yeah. Printing at home is wonderful and rewarding, or it could be the opposite. It just depends how you approach it. Steven, we're talking about the cartridges. Do you want to send them to me or not? I mean, let me know. If not, you can send them to Erman's. I don't know where he's located at, but it may be, if he's out of the country, it's going to be very difficult for you to send them. But let me know. I mean, I could use them. I can put them to use. Absolutely. No problem. I just keep seeing that there's a conversation going on here between you two. And he already said that he has heaps of empties. So again, I'm testing ink sets. I need to prepare batches. So I could use them. I could use them for the channel, definitely. Roger Guford, oh my God, Gujord, Gujord. Sorry, I apologize. I'm horrible. Question, how can I calculate the optimal resolution for an image to be printed on the Canon Pro 1000 to include as much detail as possible for different paper formats? Okay. You really don't have to do anything. Okay. If you use Lightroom, it automatically adjusts the PPI, pixels per inch, of any image to the native resolution of the printers. QImage does it, Photoshop does it, Lightroom does it, okay? And the driver also does it, so no need to worry. You can only get as much detail as that image already contains, okay? If you have an image that does not have, for example, on a Pro 1000, since that's what you're talking about. Oh, wait a minute. You also have some other question here that I need to correct you on. If your image is whatever number of pixels, longitudinal and vertical, you divide by 300. For the Epson, it's 360. For the Canon, 300. That will give you the number of inches of native size print you can make without changing the pixel resolution at all. Okay, so if it's, say, we'll just choose a number out of the air, 6,000 by 3,000. So that would be 3,000 divided by 300, that would be 10 inches. And 6,000 divided by 300 would be, what, 20 inches, right? So 10 by 20 would be your maximum size print you can make without any, what they call up-resing or down-resing. Now, if you have more pixels than that, then what the printer does, the driver or the application as well, is to adjust that resolution so that it ends up outputting to the printer a 300 PPI image, okay? But if you tell it to print something larger than it has pixels for, then it has to up-res. It has to manufacture pixels that don't even exist. That's going to degrade your image quality, your details, okay? That's going to degrade it because now it has to manufacture pixels. How can it do that, right? How can it do that? So the idea being that you should always print, ideally, okay, we don't do that in practice, never, but ideally, you should never print a larger print than you have pixels for. In other words, at 300 PPI, okay? As simple as that. But the adjustment to 300 PPI, which is what the printer wants to see coming in, will be done at the driver level or straight out of QImage or straight out of Lightroom. It will adjust that for you and send it to the printer. Not at 347 PPI, but at 300 PPI. Whether it had to create new pixels or it had to throw away unneeded pixels. Because beyond 300 PPI, your eye cannot even tell the difference. Even if you're looking at it that close, you cannot see the difference. Now, if you use a loupe, yeah, you can see the difference. But for most intents and purposes, you don't need more than 300 PPI for a Canon and 360 PPI for an Epson printer. These are called native resolutions. This is the frequency that the Epson printers work in and the Canon printers work in, okay? If you did not do that, under certain circumstances, you could get a weird moire looking result on some areas of pictures. And that's a weird look that you will just go crazy trying to figure out what happened because you don't see it on your monitor. You only see it on the printed result. Okay. What is the maximum of details in pixels in width and height for a given paper size? Again, divide by 300, okay? Go to your file, your original file, If you crop it, you're going to reduce the number of pixels, okay? But your original full, image, how many pixels this way, how many pixels that way, divide by 300, that will give you the maximum inches you should be printing to, okay? No more, no less, okay? Okay, in regards to Pro 1000, when setting image color space, is it CMYK? No. sRGB? Maybe. Adobe RGB. Okay, those are color spaces, okay? And you set that in your editing application, not the printer, okay? Get that? Editing application like Photoshop, you set that in your color management or color, what is it? Let me see. We're going to stay here all night if I get into this. Let me see, Photoshop. I'll give you a really quick peek at this. Here we go again with, I gotta reload my Photoshop. Okay, let's just open this. Okay. Now, what you do is you go to Edit, and down here, Color Settings. See that? And my color space inside Photoshop is Adobe RGB 1998. The standard default color space is sRGB. So because I work in RAW, I don't need a smaller color space. I can work with the larger color space. Now, once you set that up inside Photoshop, then everything you open up in Photoshop will either be converted to that color space for you, which is a larger color space than sRGB. And I always like, because monitors always show more colors than your printers can produce, you want Photoshop to maximize the way that it displays the colors contained in your photo files, especially if you work, say, a very, very good camera with 1-inch sensor, full frame, all of this good stuff. You want Photoshop to be able to display as many colors as that image contains. Okay. If you work in sRGB, it will throw away a lot of the colors. Okay. Show you a diminished color gamut inside Photoshop. Okay. So you want it to show as much, maybe even more than the printer can produce. In other words, you want to work larger than the printer can produce so that you're not missing anything. You see what I mean? It's better to have more than to have too little. Okay? You get that? So if you have, for instance, because somebody here is also adding 45 megapixel camera will print to at 300 ppi and still look sharp. Well, that makes no sense. Okay? 300 ppi on, you forget about megapixel. Tell me the actual image's dimensions, and I will gladly tell you what your maximum print size would be without up-resing. In other words, without creating more pixels just so you can still have, in other words, you're not going to be able to print a 40 by 60 inch image without up-resing. Okay? You're not going to be able to do that. So tell me what the actual pixel dimensions are from this 45 megapixel camera, okay? And then we can continue with that. Somebody told, Adam McKenzie told Hamby, I can vouch for Precision Colors. They are the best to the OEM. Yes, they are. You saw my results just now. They match. In fact, I did a funny thing. I went to my in-laws and they were having a party. Okay, all these people were there. And I laid out all these prints on their big table. Okay, it's like a 9-foot by 5-foot wide table. Okay, yeah, they do party. And guess what images or prints they picked as best? According to human, subconscious. The PC printed ones. Yeah, and I printed them with the driver. No custom profile, although I did make a custom profile. And if you were here earlier when I was doing that demonstration, you saw how good my profile is. How it's able to reproduce, at least by soft proofing. You see that not much changes. In fact, it actually improves the unsoft proof image. Okay? Yeah. So PC, yeah, they're good. They're probably the best third-party ink for the Pro 100 at this point, worldwide. I don't care where you go. The only better ink is OEM. And like I told you, all these people chose the PC prints. Okay, that doesn't mean it's better. Okay, that does not mean it's better. That just means that this particular group of people like a certain look. Okay, that's all that means. All right, let's see. Roger, I'm not going to say his last name because I'll butcher it. I print vector graphics that I can render to any resolution. Okay, that's different. That is different. You didn't say that in the past. If you're talking about vector graphics, that is all mathematically controlled, and you can make it as small as a postage stamp or as big as a billboard in the highway. Yes. So it doesn't really matter what you do in this case. You're not using what do they call that? Well, pixel based. It's no longer pixel based, so you don't worry about it. Just size it and print it. Done. Okay. In fact, you will not have any little chair steps on any angular lines because it's vector based. Yeah, and just print at the highest resolution. And there is something else. You said you did the P800. Let me see. There's something that they recommend for vector art. We'll check that out. I don't do any vector art, so it's just something that I probably never access. But I think I remember seeing it. Let's see here. Okay, so let's switch over to the screen. So let me show you how I got here. So basically right click on the P800. Is that what you're using? I hope that's what you're using. Otherwise, this will be a total waste of time in my part. So you're going to go to the driver, okay? And we're going to go to the quality options and hit the quality options, not maximum quality, just quality options. Super photo, 2880 by 1440 dots per inch. Dots per inch, not pixels per inch. This is the number of dots the printer is going to create in 1 square inch of printed material. So you want that to be at the highest. You want microweave to be on, okay? And edge smoothing, okay? So for vector art, edge smoothing, finest detail, high speed, that means unidirectional. That means bidirectional. If you click this off, it's only going to print when the printhead passes from the right side to the left side. Then it's going to return without printing. The paper will advance a tiny bit, and it will make a secondary pass, lay down some more ink, return back to the right. So it's only printing as it goes from right to left only. When you hit high speed, it's going to do it bidirectional. It's going to print from the right to the left. It's going to then advance the paper a little bit, and it's going to print from the left to the right again. This works only when your printhead alignment is perfect, okay? All right, so keep that in mind. Turning that off will take twice as long to print something. Turning that on, it will print in half the time, okay? But make sure edge smoothing is actually clicked, okay? Glad you asked that, because that's a setting that a lot of people don't realize exists. So anyway, let's continue. This has been a good night. Wow. We're about 10 minutes away, and I'm not even done yet. We're going to be going past 3 hours, folks. Enjoying the stream, printing out some of the test images of my Pro 100S this evening, and it's just so exciting to get a print that matches the image on the calibrated screen. I love printing. This is Claire Hopkins, and you did say 100S, so I know you're not here in the USA, and that is good to hear, because a lot of people in other countries, especially Europe, wonder whether these printers that are zoned for Europe operate in the same way, and I think they do. In fact, the cartridges I know are interchangeable. Sheila Brown is saying hello to everybody. Did you just get here? I hope not, because we're about to go off the air pretty soon. Ron says, is there a way to put roll paper on a Pro 1000 printer? No, there isn't at this point. The only thing you could do is upgrade that firmware and then just cut sheets yourself from a roll. That would be the only way. If they did that, then people wouldn't buy the Pro 2000. You see what I mean? Although the Pro 2000 is 24-inch capacity. But I don't think that they are looking anywhere to turn the Pro 1000 into a roll type printer. That would be a dream come true. That would be the perfect printer for me. Right now, the P800 is a perfect printer. It does have roll capabilities. It doesn't cut the paper for you, but you have to do that manually. But because of its lock to third-party products, I don't classify it as the perfect printer for us home refiller types. Yeah, there are options that you can, undertake, but it's not convenient, Installation of special firmware to make it a chipless printer, installation of a decoder board to allow you to, continue using ink monitoring, all kinds of things you can do. But, the best thing would be to just simply load refillable cartridges and have them auto reset. Okay, that's not the case. So to me, that's not a perfect printer. The Pro 1000, it is if you're going to use OEM only. Yeah, that would make it in my case a perfect printer for home use. The same thing with the Pro 1000. As long as you're using OEM, yeah, you don't have to worry about waste ink generated because it all goes into a container and you just remove it and put a new one in. Whereas the Pro 100, once those internal pads are full, that's it. Buy a new printer. It's not going to be serviced. It costs too much, more than you paid for the printer. So, okay. The Pro 1000 does not have a way to mount roll paper. You have to cut your own. Yeah. Stephen Baxter says, when I print standard, it all correct. I don't know what you mean by standard. Standard paper choice? That's just plain paper. Okay. That's like meant for documents. It's a $5,000 iMac. Why does Mac cost so much? I don't get it. Okay, Ron says, where can I get a copy of the standard image like you are using? In my Facebook group. Okay, easy as pie. Just join the Facebook group and it's right there among many other types of images that you can use for your testing procedures. But let me find the one. I hope I have it down here somewhere. Standard images. I'm going to load the website that these original images come from. Here you go. There it is at the very bottom of the chat right now. You should be able to access the original download site for these images. Okay. Adam, I don't know what you're saying when you say when you reiterate when to use. Can you reiterate when to use ICM? Yeah, ICM is when you let the driver control color. Okay? So if you tell Photoshop to let the printer control color, your Pro 100, Pro 1000, any kind of printer, you go to color/intensity manual adjustment, matching ICM. Okay? If you're going to let Photoshop control color to an ICC profile, you go to all of that again, but matching none. That way the printer driver here is controlling color and Photoshop is not. Or this is not controlling color and Photoshop is. Okay? Either one. Not both at the same time or both off. No, you cannot have that. Wait, you're going to send these from Ireland? Wow, okay. That's, my heart just fluttered. Thank you. Let me know. Just give me an email and we'll get everything. If you mean me, and we'll get this all squared away. Ah, boy, you guys are too nice. I think Spike is straightening up Adam here the same way, telling him to make sure that you use the correct setting in the driver. Adam McKenzie says to Spike, then how is that different from the driver matching? Wait a minute. Use ICM when you want the driver to manage color. Okay. Because ICM automatically allows the driver to use the correct matching profile for a Canon paper you choose to print on. Okay. And this, I stress Canon paper. This will not work with Red River paper. Okay. Canon paper. So if you're using Red River paper, then you would download that Red River profile. You would then follow its instruction to use whatever paper choice, but you would tell color matching to go to none this time because you're letting Photoshop print with that profile from Red River. You see? So Photoshop is printing with the profile from Red River and the driver is set to none. Driver none, Photoshop yes. Okay. If you're printing on Canon paper, you don't have to let Photoshop control color. Turn that off, turn it back on the driver, set it to ICM. ICM, driver control color. Okay. None, the driver does not control color. Simple as that. None is off, ICM is on. And it's on basically automatically matching the correct profile to whatever Canon paper you're using. Okay. It will not match other profiles. Okay. Only works for Canon. Okay. Okay, let's see. All right, Stephen Baxter will email me. Great. It is past midnight over there, so yeah, you better hit the sack, my friend. I'm glad you came on board tonight. I believe you are new, and so I really appreciate you spending all this time with us. Fantastic group of folks here, and at least hearing me talk. Someday I'm going to try another form of live streaming where I will be able to hand out links to people. And as long as you have like a webcam and a mic, you should be able to join us on a panel. And we should be able to then have incredible discussions, basically live, one-on-one, and instead of just watching me. Okay, so I'm working on that. I'm going to first try it on a small drone live stream I'll do maybe in the middle of the week and see how that works. A lot of people use that. It's called StreamYard, and it allows people to come in. As long as you have a camera and a microphone, you can join the panel, and we can at least look at each other as we are talking. So that's something that I'm looking into. It should be an improvement to this whole environment here. Andre Charlevoix says, did you get any information from Mike about it? No expiration dates on the new OEM Pro 1000 carts. You mean OEM? Yeah, OEM Pro 1000 carts. I don't know why they do that. I really don't know. They're probably chuckling, thinking that we're going to go through those cartridges with all the cleaning cycles before any problem, begins to show up. I'm being sarcastic. Okay, I really don't know why, but it's a good question. I'm going to ask him about that. As far as the bottles from Precision Colors, they have a date on them, and I mistakenly call that an expiration date. It is not. It is a best used before date, in other words, and they give you like 2 years. So if you buy something today, you got a good 2 years before you can open it up and use it, and no problems. And again, those dates are to be taken with a grain of salt anyway. So the worst thing you could do is just contaminate inks by, with sloppy refilling techniques. That's actually That's actually worse than anything, any expiration date that you may have to deal with. But yeah, I don't understand why they don't have dates on them. They don't. I don't see a date anywhere here. I see a barcode, but I don't know what that's about. Yeah, there's nothing here. And I have not messed with this cartridge at all, so. Good question, though. Okay, let's see. Deborah Bernath. You answered this online several years ago. The fine art media is grayed out on my Epson Stylus Pro Photo R3000. I changed from photo to matte. Why is this? I can't print on Epson paper. That should not be the case. I don't understand. I do have an R3000. It's not connected at this point to my computer. I don't know of anything that would cause that to be grayed out, that choice. In other words, your fine art media choice is not available. Is that what you're saying? That's weird. I changed from photo to matte. In other words, you've changed from photo paper to matte paper, or from or photo. You mean black ink? You change from photo black to matte black, and now your fine arts choice is grayed out? That should not be the case, because in the fine art setting for the drop down menu for fine art does include not only matte papers but also Barita papers, which have gloss, a certain degree of gloss, and need photo black. Okay, if that's what you mean, then I have no clue what's going on. That's not normal. That should not be grayed out at all. In fact, the same thing would occur on the P800. I have to switch from one type of ink to the other as well. And neither category is grayed out. So I don't get it. Oh, I think you figured it out. Hang on. I figured it out. I have to set the paper. Thanks for the help anyway. Okay. That may be a little bit different. The R3000 has been ages since I use it. Yes, but I had to change the paper setting to fine art paper. Okay. Anyway, I'm glad you figured it out. Jason Machin just dropped a $5 super chat. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for always sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Best wishes. Wow, appreciate that. That will certainly help the stream tonight. Hey, if any of you feel a little bit generous tonight, you can drop a few dollars on Super Chat. It's available at the bottom of the chat. It's very easy and totally safe. Okay, now it's after 8. And let me leave you with just, again, don't leave yet, guys. Don't leave yet, because I want you to see. Somebody asked about the Anafi earlier. We got 29 people, so let's see how many people bail out. I hope not too many. I want to show you the last video that I did. Let me see if it's still here. I may have moved it over to my other drive. If I cannot show it to you here, I will have to. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to turn the volume down. So, the Para Anafi has a feature that allows the camera, unlike any other drone. This is, by the way, this is flying right now. It is hovering. I can tilt the camera straight up. And now behind my grandson's house, it's about maybe 30 acres of woods. And so I decided to walk the drone, basically fly it at about 5 feet altitude, and just walk through some of the paths that the deer make, when they come roaming through the woods. But I'm looking straight up, which is unheard of. Kind of dreamy, isn't it? So there's a wide path that the landscapers, by the way, he lives, in a very large house. You'll see this in a bit. So they leave this path and they leave some areas unmowed. And so I'm just following. Again, I'm just flying the drone, turning this way and that way along these paths, and hoping that I don't hit anything. Again, this point of view is just normally not available to any other type of drone. Now, this is supposed to be 4K. It may not come across as 4K because of the maximum resolution of the stream, which is only 1080p. As you saw there, I'm shooting in a very cinematic type mode. It's called P-Log, which basically, it's like if you look at a raw file that has not been edited yet, you know how it looks kind of dull and just lacking color and contrast. That's what P-Log means. And there's also K-Log as well on some cameras. It's just a very flat profile that you can then do a lot more editing to it than you would had you basically shot on something similar to like directly shooting into a camera using JPEG as your file format. That file will have been processed internally, and you really can't do much if you lose shadow detail or highlight detail. Whereas in P-Log you can actually bring in, it's almost like shooting in RAW format. This is the house where Grandma Mooney and the wife of Bill Mooney, William Mooney, the grandfather of Nathan. I'm the other grandfather. So this house belonged to Grandma. They owned all of this land prior to the second house being built, which is the one that's coming up in a second here. I think it is. There it is. So this is where my son, my daughter, her husband, and Nathan live. The in-laws live in the last little house right here, which is attached to this one. It's a long continuous dwelling. It can be kind of a, well, you could imagine. Let's not get into that. But I wanted to display the kind of fluidity that you can get. This is something that a lot of drone pilots are not able to produce. And, they like to change direction quickly and zigzag and jungle, jumble and a lot of very abrupt movements. The Parrot Anafi is made for this type of work. We got about 6 more minutes here. I just want to take you through and show you what I do for fun. And here's the thing with anything, any hobby, once you make a hobby more of a job, it kind of takes the fun away. And I remember when printing for me was, more of a hobby, fun thing. And now because I have to, the pressure of coming up with new content and that sort of thing, and always coming up with something new to discuss, it's becoming more of a job. And it does earn revenue, but again, because it does that, it kind of loses the fun. So I find it very difficult lately to maintain that fun attitude. But you know what? The comments that you guys lay down on me on my channel, and also the opportunities for me to help someone in the Facebook group, just make it all worthwhile. And so when I get a chance to do something like I am doing now, flying over Nathan's woods here, as I call them, this is just a reward for me. And then I leave here, I stop doing this for a while, and I feel revived. And there I am down there. Look at that. Here I am. I'm as little as an ant down here. Right there. So it's at a relatively good altitude. And lucky for me, this area of town It's outside of the Washington, D.C. no-fly zone. And in the surrounding neighborhood, there are some open fields that are pretty wide, some pretty picturesque looking areas. This is the neighbor's pool. And again, I just make sure that I just don't go over the property lines. I may look like I'm flying over the property, but directly down I am not. I'm staying within the property line, the Mooney property line. And of course, they're Irish descent, the Mooneys. And now Nathan, middle name is Francis, and last name Mooney. But then he has all of my bloodline also in him, which is quite diverse. So I'm flying across the front, and notice you may have noticed that I have been adjusting the camera gimbal slightly as I fly, either up or down, slightly down, more level. Again, it's all about that smooth flying. And now, after this little session is done, I'm going to do a second session where I will then shoot in a slightly different mode where it will allow a little bit more fluidity. And by that I mean that so far as I yaw from left to the right, or that means turning on your axis, it's keeping the horizon basically perfectly level. Now the last bit that I'm going to do after I fly over myself here is going to be using what they call cinematic mode, which basically unlocks that locking of the horizon, if you will, and it adds a little bit more tilt as you turn. It just makes it look more realistic. See, I just turned to the right, but the horizon stays level. That is controlled by the mechanical gimbal. But now we're going to take it off of that, and we're going to allow the horizon tilt to come into play. Oh, by the way, you can take this thing up and take 21 megapixel photos, which then we just bring down to the print room and print. Just imagine, I'm going to be shooting some panorama shots where I will be using my P800 to maybe do a 17 by 60 something inches long photo. We'll do a panorama of this bit of land here, the surrounding area. Okay, here we go. We're going to fly in cinematic mode now. And it's very subtle. You have to kind of carefully look to catch it. As I yaw, you will see that it's not as abrupt. When I come to a straight, you see the horizon tilted back to horizontal now. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn again. And it just tilts a little bit. There you go. You saw that little sway. Now you can adjust how much of that horizon tilt is brought in, depending how much you want it to look like like you're flying an airplane. That's Daddy driving in right there in the red car. One of the best exercises to do with a drone is to just fly continuously and make it look smooth so that you don't ever have to cut something out of the video. So you can go maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes of flying. There you go, I'm bringing the gimbal down. And not have anything abrupt happening that you have to then cut out of the video. It can just be a continuous path. Here comes Mama, right there. Nathan's mom, my daughter, is coming in. And Daddy had bought a bike rack so that Nathan and Dad could go to certain places, not so close to the house, and go bike riding. So he is parked in the garage where Judy normally parks. So he's got a meter and tell her that, hey, I got the garage occupied. You're gonna have to park in my spot. He parks outside and she parks in the garage. And at the end, I want to show you something this drone can do that nothing else can do. So I can hover at like 2 feet above the ground, of course tilt the camera up, and shoot myself. Look at that. And then land. That's impossible. Nothing else can do that. anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. That was really, again, just a little demonstration of what I do for fun. I don't get to do it as often as I wish I could. But again, now things are getting a little chilly around here. And we're not getting the great colors that we thought we were going to get. Now, that would be a fantastic opportunity to fly over those woods, because it's nothing but oaks and maples and other species of some softwoods and some hardwoods. And those are the ones that change color. So I wanted to fly over those. And there's some surrounding neighborhoods that I can basically maybe touch on a little bit. But turns out that the trees are quickly turning brown rather than nice, beautiful colors like in New England. Okay, so let's see. It's very dark outside right now, so I can't even tell. Haha. Let me see if there's anything else here. All right, Deborah says, thanks for sharing your fun. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad you guys, at least 20 of you, are still here. And if that is all the questions that we have, let me go ahead and say thank you for coming on tonight, hanging with me. And let me load up some music here so that we can say goodbye. Again, if you guys have any questions, refer back to my email. You can email directly myself, and that way I can go ahead and help you out in a more personal matter. If you need like a whole hour one-on-one, I need to say help you with a very difficult problem, I run a service where I actually do one-on-one consultations. On the phone, I usually stay about an hour and a half with you anyway, because we do a lot of preliminary setup and such. And $45, that's all it will cost you. And so far, 150% satisfaction for most of my customers. Again, I also run a profiling service. If you have any papers that you want to use from a specific printer with specific ink set, then you need a custom profile, my friends. Nothing else is going to help you. And as you saw when I did that so-called soft proofing demonstration on just my image, I actually think that profile helped the image. Okay, instead of, usually what happens is a profile will show you a result that looks a little bit duller, less saturated, has to be enhanced a little bit in order to make it print as you wish it would. I think that wasn't the case, and I didn't notice that until today. I actually did this in private, and I thought, wait a minute, this is not right. My profile is actually improving the image rather than detracting away from the so-called unprofiled look on the monitor, which is usually the brighter, more pop, more contrast, more everything. So that's good to see. I'm glad that that was the case. All right. Let me see what we can play. How about this one? Yeah, there you go. All right, folks. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next week. And I got to come up with some more content for this coming week as well. Anyone interested in drone flying, drone related content, I will try to do a live stream sometime this week. Again, if you want to come on board with me, we'll be using the other streaming software, StreamYard, and you will be able to then use a link that I would then make available to you to just simply jump in and join us. As long as you have a camera and mic, you will be able to then talk with whoever else wants to join. And so it should be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about many different subjects having to do with photography, aerial videography, that sort of thing. Everything is related in this world. Okay, so thank you so much. Again, happy printing, everybody.